My name is Kyla Woods, and I am a reporter and fill-in anchor at WLWT News 5. I hope you guys are watchers. If not, I hope you will be after today. Thank you so much for having me today as your MC. And like I said, we will go ahead and get the program started. Up first, we will have Dave Denny, and he will speak about his dad, Reverend Robert Denny, who will be receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award. So please welcome Dave Denny at this time.
Good evening. My name is Frank Russo, and before Dave speaks, I'd like to tell a little bit about Reverend Denny and how he's impacted the Colerain community, the running community in general, and the lives that go way, way beyond just the west side of Cincinnati. It's been nearly 40 years since I met Reverend Denny. My most vivid memory of him was coming out of the locker room after practice, seeing him and his dog Sam, or as we called him, Sami, running side by side along the cross-country course at White Oak Junior High. Both seemed to enjoy each other's company and just being out on the course. I would soon learn that Reverend Denny's passion for running had a history. He wasn't just a jogger out on a casual run with his dog. He was a competitive runner, which dated all the way back to his childhood days, where he ran in high school and later at Houghton College in upstate New York. During the fall of '75, Reverend Denny organized the Denny Memorial, a road race to honor his father, who introduced him to the sport and gave him the talent. The race had a unique twist. It was a handicap race, which is rare in our sport. The fastest started last. It created a real buzz among the entire Colerain program, including the alum. The Denny Memorial was a huge success and soon became a postseason fall tradition spanning over 2 decades. Reverend Denny's race day ritual was handing out charm suckers. After each race, he would take time to congratulate each of us on our performance and comment with a comment like, "That was a beautiful race." Then the personal award came, a reach in the pocket and a sucker with a smile. At the time, I simply enjoyed it. As the years went by, I realized just how special that personal moment was. He truly appreciated our effort and team performance. He became one of us. Being accepted in the Colerain program at the time meant you were given a nickname. Hence, Reverend Denny became the Running Rev, or the Rev for short. It would stick. Over the next 4 decades, our team at LaSalle would cross paths with the Rev on the streets of White Oak. 2 generations of athletes would soon get to know the Rev and quickly appreciate his support. The Rev's greatest gift to running wasn't the Denny Memorial, it wasn't the suckers or the support he provided during our state title run in 1978. It was the gift that his father had given to him, the passion of running, that he would pass along to his son, and his son to his grandsons, Brian, Jeffrey, and Josh, who all ran for Colerain. Personally, my family has been blessed to have him in our lives. I'm honored to introduce and celebrate the Rev's Lifetime Achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Denny and his son, David.
Thank you, Frank, for choking up. It's going to make this a whole lot easier. First of all, congratulations to all of you and your outstanding accomplishments, and thank you so very, very much for your affirmation of a joyful journey into the world of running. When Frank and David stopped by one day and announced the schedule of this day and what it was all about, I found myself speechless and my jaw dropped open. I know it is difficult to imagine a Presbyterian minister of 50-plus years preaching every Sunday to be speechless at any time, but I was. Why an honor for doing something you love to do? I decided to take some time every day for a while to review who I am, how I got there, and where I came from. It's my opinion that no one makes it all by himself or herself. So I remembered I'm one of 5 children born to Bill and Helen Denny during the Great Depression in West Side Buffalo. Graham and Gramps lived with us and taught us a lot of things like a stitch in time saves 9, do it right or don't do it, and many, many more. My mother was a happy lady who loved to have us stand around the piano and sing, and she had never taken a lesson in her life. You didn't say whether she was good or not. My dad was always after us to run, jump, and play. He was also a runner, including marathons. I remember when I ran in high school, he would always be there. I was amazed he would show up so often in so many places on the course and always had a positive phrase or one word to pick me up. Keep your chin up. Lift your knees. You can do it. Give it all you've got. My dad was so inspiring to all 4 of us sons, Dad and his 3 brothers. We asked him to join us in forming a team, which was common in all of Buffalo races. We had a great time planning, preparing, and performing for the races. Lots of learning, laughing, and enriching our family bond. My recall of Dad inspired me to launch the Bill Denny Memorial Road Race in 1975 and host it for 20 years. A handicapped race which allowed slower runners to start up to 15 minutes ahead of the jocks, like Frank Russo, and make it possible to win a prize. Some other key people in my life included a high school cross-country coach who taught me to have fun and become friends with my partners, a pastor who helped me believe that I could make it in college even if I had a vocational diploma. Dad has a vocational diploma in carpentry, and I don't think he knows how to use a hammer. But he was behind me all the way. A magnificent wife who went along with my indulgence of running. 4 fantastic children who cheered me on, 2 who became runners, 1 a Hall of Famer at his college. Thank you. 9 super grandchildren, 3 great grandchildren, marvelous in-laws, and friends. Coming to Cincinnati wowed me with the number of runners in all the races. Buffalo had hundreds, but Cincinnati had thousands. It was a lot of fun to watch our 3 grandsons challenge each other to show continuous signs of improvement as they ran the races I used to run along with their dad. The boys, Brian, Jeffrey, and Josh, remind me of my growing up years in running. Always some chatter, always some bragging, stories, new learnings, and thanks to Dad for encouraging to run not only with your legs, but with your head, your heart, and your determination. Finally, I want you to know that 4 grand runners of the past still get together every month to tell stories of the past. You should hear some of them. Howard Hughes is the instigator. Don Wally, who's with us today, has the most stories to tell. And Lyndon Ogden is still hitting the road now and again, and I'm their cheerleader. I love to run. Finally, I'm not running races like I used to and miss it very much. But I'm running another kind of race called Running to Find a Cure for ALS. You are welcome to join us in body for the ALS walk in September. Mind to think of the support that you can provide, and spirit, you will be engaged with so many others who will run to win. Again, thank you so very much for your affirmation.
Thank you so much, Dave. What beautiful words. What a wonderful tribute to your dad. And thank you all so much for honoring him in that way. That's difficult to follow, Dave. Thank you. Well, we'll keep the program moving right along. Up next, we will hear from Dan Flynn, who will introduce, he's the AD at LaSalle High School, and he will give words again about our other Lifetime Achievement Award winner, Coach Toby Durr. Welcome him at this time.
Thank you. It is my honor and privilege to induct George Toby Durr to the Greater Cincinnati Running Hall of Fame as its Lifetime Achievement Award winner 2014. Toby has coached thousands of track athletes over his a career that spanned in excess of 50 years. He is known throughout the state of Ohio as a bit of a pole vault guru, and he has produced 16 state qualifiers and 3 Division I state pole vault champions along the way. Since Toby's retirement from teaching in 2000, he has continued to mentor many young pole vaulters and coaches. Anyone who would ask for his advice, he was glad to share his experience with them. Toby has been doing this with Mike Albrink, one of his former vaulters, who vaulted at LaSalle and was one of the top pole vaulters of all time at the University of Cincinnati. And what they've done is they've created what I believe is a great fraternity of pole vaulters. Not only have they worked with vaulters from LaSalle, but also Macaulay, and again, a number of other pole vaulters throughout the city. Toby could not be with us this evening as he's fighting a real tough disease here. But he is truly a family man. Things I want to let everybody know about him is he's truly a family man and a very humble and generous person. Oftentimes, when we needed something for the track program at LaSalle, Toby was willing to donate his coaching stipend, whether it was for a barn to house the pole vault equipment, to this past season we needed a new pole vault pit. We were proud to name our new pole vault pit after Coach Toby Durr. So again, it's been an honor and a pleasure knowing Toby over 40 years, having coached with him for 31 years, and would like to congratulate his family tonight for Toby on his Lifetime Achievement Award. So at this time, I'd like to call his son up, Joe, who will be accepting the award for Toby this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Good afternoon. On behalf of my father, the family, we'd like to thank Coach Russo for the nomination, the Hall of Fame, for granting my father the award, and our host, Ms. Woods. Thank you. In discussing my dad's career over the past 50 years, over these past few weeks, it's obvious that we can't share every memory. It would take an incredibly long time. However, he did want to recognize several individuals. First and foremost, Coach Russo. Coach Russo came into Dad's life at a point where he was getting a little burnout, quite frankly, with coaching. And at that time, Dad's thoughts were, when the GCL league meet ended, so did the season. There were very few times that we went on to regional or state endeavors. Frank brought new life to the program and rekindled my father's spirit and dedication to coaching. Frank has taken LaSalle's program from a literal also-ran program to one that is recognized throughout the city, the state, the region, and beyond. My father's grateful for all you've done for him, Frank. Additionally, he'd like to recognize Mike Albrink, current pole vaulting coach. When I asked my father who was the better coach, he or Mike, my dad took a minute and thought, said, well, I get him the first 10 feet, Mike gets him the next 5. So by virtue of simple math, I think I'm twice as good as Mike. I think Mike rebutted with something about the law of exponentials, but we won't get into that. Mike and the entire Albrink family have also been very good to my father. They've taken him in and made them a part of his family as well. So thank you so much, Mike. Honorary pole vault coach Mike Berwanger, currently shot and discus coach. I think this also ties back into Mike, but during one practice, Mike came over to my father and said, "Hey, Coach, I think Mike's bending that pole a little much. I'm afraid he's going to break it and get hurt." My father said, "No, he's just a good pole vaulter, good penetration. Stick around a few minutes. I'll teach you a little something. Maybe you can be a pole vault coach." Very next vault, sure enough, Mike broke his pole. With that, my father took his hat and his clipboard, gave it to Mike, and said, "Congratulations, you passed the course." Today, I would also like to recognize Mike Leanhart, pole vault, distance, cross country, and swimming coach. Eric Veer, former pole vaulter, who's also volunteered for the last several years, works with Mike, also works with the high jump and long jumpers. Jerry, I'm going to butcher your last name, Sager? Jerry's a former Navy SEAL. If you have the opportunity tonight, please shake Jerry's hand and thank him for his service to his country. Ken Hadley, the lacrosse coach, also assists with distance and long jump. And Brian Roller, who also works with the distance boys as well. Additionally, my father would like to thank what he calls the dynamic duo of Ken Barleg and Dan Flynn. These two men were coaches when I passed through LaSalle and had a profound impact on my life as well as my father's. These two men, Danny and Ken, have worked as coaches, faculty, and administrators. I think Dan's been AD now for well over 20, 25 years. Kenny's been with the LaSalle community for over 43 years and is a recent inductee to the LaSalle Legends. My father and I are grateful to have the opportunity to have worked beside you and blessed to have you as friends. Thank you so very much. Again, on behalf of the family, my father, we'd like to thank Coach Russo, the Hall of Fame, and I now return you back to our hostess.
Thank you so much. And he called me Miss Woods. Thank you. I always enjoy that. Coming up next, we'll continue the program. And we will have the induction of our deceased athletes, and I will bring up Bill Schneer. But before he comes up, I want to just tell you a few words about Bill. I'm sure that most of the room is familiar with Bill. He has an amazing personality. Now, before today, I had not met Bill just yet. We had talked on the phone one time. So in this conversation, it was pretty lengthy. We got to know a lot about each other. And so in our conversation, we talked about his years of coaching at UC. We talked about the program. And Mary Weinberg's name came up, and I said, "Well, Bill, you know she's my sorority sister." And he says, I said, "Of Alpha Kappa Alpha." He says, "Oh, you know about that pink and green?" I said, "Well, yes, I do, Bill. And apparently you do too." Alpha Kappa Alpha, we are known for being women of integrity, character, serenity, wisdom, grace, beauty, all of the things you can see here in Miss Mary Weinberg. And my sorority sisters in the back. Hey, sorors. So it's very funny to hear that coming from Bill, who was very straight-laced up until that moment when he said, "You know about that pink and green?" Yes, I do, Bill. So please welcome Bill Schneer as he presents our next induction.
Thanks so much, Kyle. It's always good to be recognized for knowing something besides track and field. So I know my colors too. But I do want to say one thing. Congratulations to Bob Denny and to Toby Durr. This is about excellence in track and field, but it's also about excellence in the human character. And to watch boys talk about their dad in a meaningful way is very moving, and I just want to congratulate you folks and the sons that you've raised. I told Dave that we have two things in common. My aunt struggled with ALS at the same time as Lou Gehrig, and we're PKs. So we do have that in common, and the rest of you can figure that one out. And Toby Durr coached my son Keller at LaSalle High School, and I might add very well, and so did Mike Albring. So he never got those extra 5 feet, Mike, so I'm going to give a little more credit to Toby on that one. But I'm here to talk about Tom Jones. And before I say something about Tom, There are going to be two UC people recognized tonight, but there's also going to be two Miami people. Tom Jones is one, and our keynote speaker is Bob Schul, a graduate of Miami. So let's keep our rivals in mind as well. But Tom Jones has passed away, and he has no known family members, and it's really hard to find the trace of a man named Jones, and we were unable to find that. But I have found some things about it, about Tom. First of all, 1950, he graduated from Cincinnati Central Vocational Tech High School, a school that's not there today. And he was a football player and a track and field athlete, a thrower in high school, and a very legendary athlete in both of those sports. He went on to his senior year to win the state championship in the shot put for Cincinnati Central, and his team also won. They upset Mansfield High School in the Class A, which was the large schools at that time, Class A and B. So he really did well in that respect, and he was coached by Art Reisner, a person that some of you older folks do know about. He decided to go to Kentucky State University, Kentucky State College at that time in 1950. It is a historically black university in Frankfort, Kentucky, and he felt more at home in that setting. But after a year, he had a desire to enhance his academic degree, and so he sought out the school that he thought was the best suited for him in the College of Education, and that was Miami University. So he transferred after his freshman year to Miami. He was a football player and a track athlete at Miami. While there, he was named All-MAC in football 3 years in a row, and in 1955 he was named All-Ohio in football. So this is all the schools, not just the MAC schools. He did his best work in track and field, however. He was a shot putter, and he won 5 MAC championships, 3 in the shot put, 2 in the discus. He went on to set 4 All-Ohio records in the shot put, 8 All-Ohio records in indoors in the shot, outdoors in the shot. So he really was quite good. But it is his NCAA record which really sets him apart. In 1953, he was third in the NCAA shot put. In 1954, he was national champion in the shot put. And in 1955, he was second in the nationals in the shot put. He currently holds the Miami record in the shot put, 59 feet 1 inch. Now that's really easy to remember because that was set 59 years and 1 month ago. So remember that. It's quite a record. While he was in college, once the NCAA was over, he went on to continue his season. He went to the National AAU meet, which would now be called the National USATF meet. And in that meet, 3 times in a row, he got 3rd place. Now, 3rd place is pretty good. That's college people and non-college people. And every time he lost to Perry O'Brien, a man who had 2 Olympic gold medals and 10 world records. So that's where Tom was in the national scene and also the world scene. Now, when I say Perry O'Brien, there's a style of shot putting known as the O'Brien method. Now I'm going to give you the progression. If you're real old, the way they threw the shot is to stand out here and take a couple of skipping steps and throw it out there. But the O'Brien method means you face the opposite direction. So you face that way, glide it across the circle, and put the shot out there. Okay, that's called the glide. And recently, in the last several years, probably the last 12 or 14 years, there's a rotational style that looks more like the discus. Actually, it is more like the discus. So those are the 3 styles. Well, Tom Jones and Perry O'Brien were using the O'Brien style. The reason I'm going into detail on this is several people have told me, and Bob Schul today confirmed that Tom Jones used that style before Perry O'Brien. But since Perry was going to the Olympic Games and winning the gold and setting the world records, and not Tom, he was the better shot putter, it's not called the Jones style. However, here we are in Cincinnati. And so feel free to refer to it as the Jones style, and this smiling face is the one who invented the Jones style. He's a member of the Hall of Fame of the OAT CCC Hall of Fame 1981 class in Columbus. He's a 1989 inductee into the Miami Hall of Fame in Oxford. And today, 2014, he's inducted into the Greater Cincinnati Running Hall of Fame in his hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio. Gone but not forgotten, this is Tom Jones.
So now we'll continue to keep it moving. I'll invite my friend Bill Schneer back up. He is only 1 year removed from coaching at UC. He coached there for 33 years. I'm sure many of you are aware of that. Let's give it up for Bill as he comes to introduce our first honoree.
Entrance into this Hall of Fame has to do with excellence in the sport of track and field, or running. And so when I introduce Lewis Johnson, he certainly is that category. There have been a few people that have been inducted as coaches, but in Lewis's case, he's inducted as an athlete and also an announcer of the sport of track and field. He started out his career at Northwest High School here in Cincinnati, where he ran the 400 meters, 51.5. Not distinguished, but promising. He then chose to go to the University of Cincinnati. For 2 years, he decided he wasn't good enough to be on the track team. And then one day, his good friend, Doug Wiseman, our school record holder at UC, brought him into the office and says, this guy wants to be on the team. My first thought is, well, okay, but I wasn't so excited because there are a lot of people come along and say things like that. But in this case, he was serious. He ran the 400 meters his first 2 years in track, his third and fourth year in college. He got his time down to 48.8. Once again, promising, but not exceptional. At that time, he realized that he had to do something else. So he decided to come to the 800 meters. This was his decision, not mine. And so he devoted himself his final year in college to run the 800 meters. And he ran it very well. He set our school record, breaking his friend Doug Wiseman's record. He ran 147 flat, .00. Still our school record. He set the school record indoors 500 meters, indoors 1,000 meters, outdoors 800 meters, 2 relays, sprint medley relay, and 4x400 relay. All of these continue to be our record 27 years later, except for the 4x400 relay. His 800 meter was the third fastest ever run by Ohio Collegian, 147 flat, and the record by Ohio Collegian is 144.3, the gold medalist Dave Waddle. So Lewis is in rarefied air. He did very well at UC that last year. As I mentioned, he eventually ended up 8th in the NCAA championships, first team All-American, a real tribute to our team and of course to Lewis as well. But he wasn't done. He decided that he had more in him, and so he wanted to go to the USATF meet, and he did, out in San Jose, California. And I went with him, and my wife Kathy went with him, and if you ever watched old television, we went around and finally decided we were the mod squad. We had a black guy, a white guy, and a white girl. And we really enjoyed our time in San Jose, and especially when his uncles, the Williams brothers, who run a mission congregation, Glide Memorial Methodist Church, where they serve about 10,000 people food and clothes every day. It was a real eye-opener for me, and that's really the type of family that Lewis comes from. But he did well there, and he continued his career. He realized that he had to leave the United States, so somehow or another he got over to Europe, first to be a runner, and then to be a better runner. He went out to California for the Santa Monica Track Club and trained with Coach Joe Douglas and the U.S. record holder Johnny Gray. I believe he's still the U.S. record holder. He was in the 1988 Olympic trials and 1990 2 Olympic trials, a semifinalist in 1992. But what he learned was to not only be a runner in Europe, but little by little he started to work his way into being a rabbit, because there's more money in being a rabbit than just a pretty good runner. And he saw that. But furthermore, he got entranced with the idea of television, and he voluntarily brought information to the announcers, making them look good. And little by little, he worked his way into television, and before you know it, ABC gave him a contract, and he was on TV. And since that time, he's spread out into many different networks. He now works for NBC, he's worked for ESPN. He's been the sideline reporter for Notre Dame football. He's done NBA basketball, the finals and the All-Star game. He's done college basketball, including March Madness. He's been in the head car for the New York City and Boston marathons. And he's really, in my mind, the face of track and field in American television. He's the one who interviews the winners after each competition. And what I've really enjoyed about Lewis in his television work is before he goes on air, he is the best prepared announcer there. And he's one of the best prepared in all of sports. Sports Illustrated named him a sideline reporter for 2012, and I think he could be the sideline reporter every year. So, here he is, back in Cincinnati from his home in Dallas. He gets the award for coming the farthest. He came from Paris, where he's married to a French girl who was a 400-meter hurdler. He has 2 kids, Julian and Lucas, and he is in Cincinnati. He's a Northwest Knight, a Cincinnati Bearcat, Coleraine Township, Clifton, Fountain Square, the Ohio River. He's Skyline Chili. He's Grater's Ice Cream. When he goes on television, I feel like we all go on television. This is my friend, my athlete, Lewis Johnson.
So how do I follow that? Wow. You sure you're talking about the same guy? Unbelievable. First of all, it's just so great to be here. When I say I'm humbled about this entire experience, this opportunity, this induction, I hope that when I'm finished you'll understand how humbled I am by this. It's just unbelievable. But I got to start, before I really begin to make any formal comments, I got to tell you, this is some serious role reversal here. Do you know how many events I've been a part of like this? Many, many, but I'm always doing what Kyla does. I'm the MC. So the preparation is different. You're kind of getting your script together, and you kind of come in, check out the room, and check out the podium. Is it high enough for the tall guy? How about the microphone, the sound? Do all those kinds of things. But now I need to tell you about something else that we do as MCs. We also begin to spy on those who are going to be awarded things for the evening. You begin to look and see who looks relaxed, who looks nervous, who's got the most stuff in their hands. You know, who's got the note cards or the book. They may stand up here and tell their whole life story. You know what I'm talking about, right? You get nervous about that as well. So you begin to pay attention, you feel them out, you chat them up like I would do at the track and see how they're doing and kind of see where they are in terms of what they're going to say. Because every time we come to these things, you're hoping that someone doesn't get up here and lose their mind and talk for over an hour and you're about ready to fall in the floor. I promise you that I'm not going to do that. It reminds me of a story. I do the Jesse Owens Hall of Fame inductions every year, last several years for USA Track and Field. And we had a situation a few years ago, I'll even call it an incident. It was a crime against the podium. It was a crime against banquet events. We had a particular person who came up, and I'm going to try not to say his name, who received his award. And I introduced the person that come out and begin to talk, and I slip to the back behind the curtain. You sit down. And you know you don't take your jacket off right away because you know you figure it'd be 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. So at one point I took off my jacket and kind of started looking at the watch. And you start looking at other people backstage and you ask yourself, okay, how much longer is this going to go on? And you can hear the stories one after another where they can't seem to put a period on it and they just keep going. And so at one point we started making contact back in the back, and I said, you know, I could actually leave the back. We're in a hotel, hit the elevator, go upstairs, take a shower, come back down, and he would still be talking. Initials are OC. And so this went on forever. And at one point, I was trying to find a way. Maybe should we pull a fire alarm? Should we do some of the old school thing where you have a loud sound or something? Should I throw a shoe? It was unbelievable. Over an hour, this went on. And when we got finished with this person's induction, I think everybody was about ready to pass out. Owen Castle was the name. So he went down in infamy as somebody who really just took over the show, and I will never forget that. And I promise not to do that here to you all today. I want to say, first of all, thank you and congratulations to our fellow inductees, Tom Jones, who was inducted posthumously, of course, Coach Larry Merkel, Steve Padgett, Mary Weinberg. So honored to be with you here today. Lifetime Achievement Award winners, it's an honor to be here with you as well, and looking forward to hear what Bob Schul has to say, our Olympic gold medalist who's in the house, who, by the way, Bob just told me that he ran 20 times 160 today. How about that? Is that unbelievable or what? He ran that today on the track. The reporter's always doing his homework. So it's really incredible to be in the room with all of you, and it's an honor today. It's funny to hear and read the comments that Bill wrote, because many of you don't know that this was all very close to not ever happening. Very close. And as I begin to thank folks for what they've done to help me get to this point in my life and career, maybe you'll really begin to feel that. But what's so great about being here today is that all of it began right here in Cincinnati. And I will always feel connected to that. I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee, Steve Nestor, thank you, Coach Schneer, for your help with this, and my family. My dad is here, he's there. My wonderful bonus mom is there, my brother Brandon. My grandmother of 91 years of age, she couldn't be here today. I had breakfast with her this morning. And of course, my wife and boys are still in Paris. They'll be back next week. The coaches who believed in me and the ones who didn't. Because everybody played a role in what measure of success I've had in life. You know, my dad tried to teach me earlier in life that when things go south and don't go well, or when someone seems like they're against you, you could choose to look at it as a lesson. They're trying to teach you something. They're helping you to learn about yourself and how to manage that type of a situation. And I think I learned a lot from coaches who maybe didn't believe in me. It was a different sport. And thankfully, running was always there for me to go back to. And I had, for some reason, the feeling that that's where I wanted to be. I want to thank my teammates from Northwest High School and also from UC, because they played a big part in me being up here today. But what you need to know is that this honor today is not just about me, but it's about a story. And it's about my story, and it's about our stories in running. And it's the stories that have kept me connected to my work covering the Olympic Games. Stories of human interest, not about the stats and the numbers. Those are all great to support the stories, but it's about the people. And it's those real life stories that happen to me on the greatest stage in sports, which is the Olympic Games. When I read my bio again, I'm amazed. I can't believe I still have a record that stands at UC. And as I said before, most of you don't know that this was almost not going to happen. At Northwest High School, I thought that Bill was going to actually give me a scholarship to come to UC. But it was my buddy Doug Wiseman who got that scholarship, and I could have very easily have just given up on the sport. We've all had those moments. But my dad and the rest of my family members pointed me down to UC and said, you need to go on down there, and that's where you need to be, and I did that. In the 2 years that I was just a student, I used to walk by Dabney Hall and I'd knock on the door, the window for Doug Wiseman. He was right on the corner there on the walkway. And I knock on the window and he'd open it up and I say, hey, how's it going? He's like, everything is great. He goes, when are you coming out? I said, I don't know, I'm not sure. But he constantly encouraged me over 2 years and told me that I could be a part of the team. And he is the person who kind of helped me begin to ask myself, what is left? What's possible out there? And that's what led me to go and meet Bill Schneer in his office one day. So no scholarship, I'm walking around campus, and I'm trying to figure it out. Now, in between all of that, through high school and in my first couple of years in college, I was also working at Kings Island, the amusement park right up 71. And I'm going to tell you something. I loved the amusement park business. Loved it. Loved the thrill rides, loved the interaction with people, loved the safety, the security aspect, loved it all. And I was very, very close to staying there and continuing with a career in the amusement park business. Very close. But for some reason, I was able to pull myself away and continue on as a student and figured that there would be another direction for me. So I was very, very close. So one day I walked into Bill's office. I said, how you doing, sir? My name is Lewis Johnson. He says, I know who you are. I said, I'd like to walk on the team. And so he handed me a pair of shoes and what I thought was just an incredibly amount of monstrous workouts. The first run I did was like the Great Bearcat Run, Coach. I barely survived. It was unbelievable. But I had a passion on the inside to try and figure out what I could do in the sport. And that first year was brutal. The next year I was sort of co-leading workouts and became a co-captain. And then in 1987, as Coach mentioned, I switched events and we set the goal. We set the goal for me to become an All-American in the 800 meters. We had to get down to almost the last meet to get that qualifying time, and then I got to the Nationals and was able to finish in a high enough position to become an All-American in the 800 meters. And that was pretty incredible to think that a guy who was a walk-on had made that type of an achievement. Well, you know, was the sport going to be over for me there? Don't know. I had a summer business internship with Procter & Gamble and had been given a job opportunity. And I'm sure my dad to this day would shake his head and say, man, I thought you should have taken that job, because they wanted me, and it was a great company obviously to be with. But I had gotten a taste of running, and I still wanted to find out what was there, what was possible for me. And so I had to renege on the job, and they thought I was crazy, but they hung in there with me, and I'll always be appreciative of that. Coach mentioned the Olympic trials in '88. Overwhelmed. Flo Joe, the rest of the world, Johnny Gray, who was a half miler, obviously the American record holder. I was just overwhelmed by all of that. But at the trials in Indianapolis, I had what I would call a life-altering conversation in a hotel lobby. I was this close to coming back to UC to be a resident advisor, take a class, continue on with school in the summer, and I was going to do that. But Ken Washington and Jim Engel, who was here, part of that story as well, asked me what I was going to do, and I told him that. And I said, what are you going to do this summer? He says, I'm going to Europe to compete. I said, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, I'm going overseas to compete and run and all these meets. And he pulled a book out of his backpack, and it was the IAAF guide to all the meets. And I couldn't believe that there were meets in Paris, London, Rome, Monte Carlo, what have you. And he took me over and we met some of the organizers, and a week later, I was in Brussels competing at my first event. That gentleman there in Brussels helped me organize the rest of my meets, and the rest was really history. Off to California the next year to train with the Santa Monica Track Club, and then I was back at the trials in '92 and had the heartbreaking event of not making the team. As I look back on it now, there was no way I was going to make the team, not with the competitors that I had to deal with in America. We always say at the trials, this is the hardest team to make on the planet, and I experienced that for sure. But my heart was broken because I had a dream, and I had worked so hard. I had trained so hard. I left half my life out on those roads in Santa Monica, California, because I wanted to be an Olympian, and it didn't happen. As I was competing, I met my wife, who now gave us two wonderful sons. So incredible things were happening in the midst of all that disappointment. But then this other dream began to creep in, and it was about television, as Bill referenced. And so in 1995, the window opened for me to retire from track and field and move into television. All these things you could have never written down. It's just amazing to me that it all happened. So I get the opportunity to audition at the '99 World Championships, and I get this job as an analyst, and then I had to re-audition for the position at the Sydney Olympic Games. And then this was the moment for me that culminated it all. I got to Sydney in 2000, and I was out on a run outside the hotel, and as I was jogging, I saw the Sydney Opera House, and then I saw the bridge there with the Olympic rings on it. And then all of a sudden it hit me like a ton of bricks that my Olympic dream had come true, not as a runner, but as a commentator. And I began to weep uncontrollably, because it all came to fruition right there, and I understood what the moment meant. So I pulled my hat down and I pushed my sunglasses up because I didn't want anybody to see this big 6'6" guy crying as he ran through the park. But that's what I was doing. Thankful, appreciative, in awe of what I was about to experience. And so now, 8 Olympics later, the Paralympics in Sochi this past summer, and next week I leave for China for the second ever Youth Olympic Games, which we'll have some coverage on for NBC. And along with all the other television events, it's all just unbelievable. And what I want to say to all of you is that on paper, none of that should have happened. It makes no sense that anything would have happened like that. But we don't live our lives on paper, do we? We do not live our lives on paper. What made it all possible? Well, I think it was dreaming. Big, ridiculous dreams. Crazy dreams. It was the love and support of my family, even when they didn't understand what I was doing and the decisions and choices I was making. And it was coaches and teammates who challenged me to work harder and to reset goals and to go to class and pay my bills. Coach, you told me that all the time. And of course, Almighty God, who gave me just a measure of talent, but then he gave me the people and the resources and the opportunities to build on the talent that he gave me. So now the question is what am I doing now? Well, I have this challenge now to use my platform in a way that, yeah, I still want to win for my family, but I also want to pay it forward. I love speaking with new broadcasters on the way like Kyla, because she's going to make it, I already know it, and I'm willing to share any story I can with her so that her path may be a little faster than mine, and she can avoid some of those crazy potholes that I've hit in my career, which we all hit in the business, and that's the way it is. But paying it forward is very important for me. And I think the message to us all here is that everybody in this room needs to get out some of those old dreams and dust them off. You need to get them out and think about them. You need to start writing again. You need to come up with some new dreams and say, hey, where am I? What do I want to do? And then you got to get on the attack. If you're still breathing, you still have a chance to accomplish a dream. You've got a chance to make something happen. And then you need to find something to be thankful for every day. It's funny, if you're thankful for what you have and who you are, you find a way to get that inspiration, that extra nudge to continue to move forward. And if any of you are having any challenges with being thankful, then let me just offer you a couple of stories from a few athletes that I covered at this recent Paralympics in Sochi, Russia. There's a young lady by the name, I believe, of Natalie Jallin. She was an alpine athlete, and all the alpine athletes were either single or double amputees, flying down the mountain at 50, 60 miles an hour. But this young lady in particular, whenever she'd come down, she had no left arm and no left leg. So imagine she's skiing on one side of her body, flying. And when she'd get down in front of me in the mix zone, she gave the most joyous interviews that I've ever experienced, to the point where whenever she got finished, all I could say was thank you, because I had a frog in my throat. Unbelievably inspiring. There was a woman from Romania who was at the Paralympics for her second time, and she was solo by herself. I interviewed her, and I asked her, I said, why is it that you're still the only Paralympians from your country? She says, well, in my country, prosthetics are so expensive that people can only get them and they really just think about trying to walk. That's really where they are right now. And I said, so are you here to try and inspire more people to join you at the next Paralympics? She said, no, I'm here to inspire the world. Once again, a frog in my throat, and all I could say was, thank you. And then finally, there was a young man that Team Australia brought, Ben Tudhope, 14 years old, looked like he was about 10, but he spoke like he was about 25. He was there to get his first Paralympic experience in snowboard cross, which is a brand new event. So I had the chance to talk to him a couple of times, and in my final interview with little Ben, I said to him, Ben, if there's something you'd like to say to disabled athletes in America, disabled kids like you, what would that be? And he turned to the camera with his lisp and his gesticulating body, and he said, if you're disabled like me, he says, just get up and try something. Just try something. And again, I couldn't speak. Ben is talking to all of us. He's saying for all of us to stand up and just try something, do something, make a move. And that's some inspiration that I can use in my life, and I know you can use in yours. As I close out, I want to say something to two people. Coach Neer, I told both my boys recently that next to the relationships with their parents and grandparents and extended family, one of the greatest relationships they can have is with a coach or a mentor in the collegiate years, because they'll spend so much time with them and have so many experiences that help move them along in their lives. And I'm so thankful today that we still have such a great relationship. Notice I don't call him Bill. I call him Coach, because that's what you are, you will always be to me. And thank you so much for the tremendous relationship. Would you mind please giving Coach Bill a hand? And finally, I get a lot of pats on the backs and people say I do a great job because I have this public job on television, but the truth of the matter is that I'm not the real Hall of Famer. The real Hall of Famer is my dad, and he's standing back there. He's the real Hall of Famer. From high school to college to Vietnam, coming back, law school, and all the things you did, you always kept family first, the number one priority. That's what I remember and what I love about you, Dad. And also the fact that you allowed a guy who was all over the map, literally and figuratively, to find his way. And with my big, ridiculous, crazy dreams, you allowed for me to live and find those. And so I want everybody in this room to know, and everybody in Cincinnati to know, that there's the real Hall of Famer. Thank you all so much for the honor, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for your inspirational words. Appreciate it.
Boy, you talk about tough to follow. That Lewis Johnson. Can we give it up again for Lewis Johnson? Oh my goodness. Just amazing. And you know what? I will tell you from the broadcasting standpoint, and everyone that you meet, I'm sure it's just like in any of your fields. Really, broadcasting is not very different from what everyone else does. It's just that we do it on television. So, you know, when you meet people in your field, let's say CEOs and COOs and founders and things of that nature, you know, when they come to your building and everybody tidies up and everybody's all nervous, like, oh, you know, so-and-so's going to be here, Mr. Smith from the big office in New York, and everybody's all nervous, and you wonder if they're going to say hi, are they going to hug me, are they going to shake my hand, are they going to make eye contact, and you never know how that's going to go. Did everyone have that experience? Yes. So in the same way, when you meet fellow broadcasters who are on a network level, you never know how that's going to go. We've had people who have come to our affiliate here. We are the NBC station. You have people come through and you know so-and-so's going to be here. Oh, but they're locked away in the corner office. They're just going to broadcast on the Today Show from over there. And no one ever sees them. Not many people will sit down and take the time and offer advice and be as kind and as warm and as just forthcoming as Lewis has been to me just in this last 2 hours. So I am thankful. And one of the greatest compliments that we get in this business, and he and I were just talking about that, is that people tell you you are just like you are on TV. That is the greatest thing anyone can ever tell you because it's not an act. People can see you for who you are. And I hope that always translates for me. But this man is better than he is on TV in person. So thank you so much for being that way. So sorry to go on and on, but I just had to say that. So next, we will hear from Mike Deering. He will introduce our next inductee, Larry Merkel. So welcome, Mike, at this time.
Thank you. Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance tells the story of a father and son trekking by motorcycle from Minnesota to California. Much of the novel is a contemplation of various light topics, philosophical ideas, including the metaphysics of quality, of the definition of what is good. Near the end of the narrative, the son wonders if motorcycles are hard to take care of. The father replies, quote, "Not if you have the right attitudes. It's having the right attitude that's hard." For Larry Merkel, who taught this novel in his AP Language and Composition class, having the right attitude has always seemed so easy. Whether it was as a father and husband, a friend, a teacher, or of course, as a coach. While his accomplishments as a coach stand on their own and can be read in the program or seen up there on the screen, I think it's important to realize that this Hall of Fame is gaining a man of great character. Larry is without question a loving husband, father, and friend. He has maintained his childhood home in Newton Falls, Ohio, certainly to remain connected to his small town roots, and now in large part to be closer to his daughters who both live in Cleveland. He has spent much of this summer traveling to Nepal, where he and his family visited his daughter's in-laws. With colleagues and students, he is a great listener, thoughtful, and deals with people with compassion and empathy. I've continually admired the depth and duration of Larry's friendships. As a teacher and coach, Larry strived to be better even when he was already at a high level. As a teacher, even as retirement approached, and Larry just retired from St. Xavier this year, Larry attended a week-long seminar at Bard College to improve his craft. He has worked tirelessly to find different approaches to teach his students, AP or not, to become better readers. At the beginning of each school year for the past several years, Larry has set a goal to be more positive. an example of that drive to find the best attitude, the highest quality. The same qualities that made Larry a great teacher have made him a great coach. He tried to find ways to get kids excited about the sport, going so far as to have St. Xavier Cross Country's version of Midnight Madness, kicking off the season at 12:01 a.m. on the first day of official practice. He tried to give kids the most opportunities to be successful and compete at the highest levels, oftentimes splitting his teams into 3 or 4 to do so. Most importantly, as with all great coaches, Larry loved the kids he coached. He knew who they were as people and tried to treat all of them with thoughtfulness and compassion. Of all of his achievements, Larry's greatest may have been the kindness with which he treated the hundreds of runners under his care during his career. Andy Wheatmartian, St. Xavier's current cross-country coach, and I have often commented that Larry has been our father at St. Xavier. Like all good fathers, whether he knew it or not, Larry has taught us important lessons about good values and attitudes far beyond those of coaching. What we've achieved as a cross-country program has been, in reality, an attempt to honor the man who has meant so much to us. And as such, it is my privilege and honor to introduce Larry Merkel as a member of the Greater Cincinnati Running Hall of Fame.
I have no idea why I brought my glasses up here. I have nothing written down. I take, excuse me, I take responsibility entirely for the fact that I was unprepared to talk tonight. Probably Steve Nestor told me that I would, but I seemingly disregarded it. So this is winging it at the highest level. Thank you, Mike. Thanks to all the coaches from St. X who showed up, all the guys that I coached. I told Debbie on the way over here, I think we'll know anybody there? You know, of course there's people that I was going to know, but I am truly grateful, thankful, kind of amazed that all you guys showed up. So, and to be up here in the presence of people like Lewis Johnson, who I admired on TV. I told him when I first met him, I said, you're the only guy that I've heard talk about track and field that makes any sense. That seems like he knows what he's talking about. And that was not intended as a slam of some of those other people, but you know, you could tell Lewis understands. To be up here with Mary Weinberg and Steve Padgett, and it's just, I'm shocked. If somebody had told me when I started teaching at St. X 37 years ago, man, it's a long time, that I would be in this position, I would never have believed it. I don't know what to make of it now. I honest to God, don't. I was a runner in high school, but not very good. I was mediocre, we'll say at best. When I started coaching cross country at St. Xavier High School, I had never seen a cross country meet because my high school didn't have cross country. I just ran track distance. So I'm trying to do something that obviously I wanted to do well, but I had very little idea how to do it because I didn't even really know what the sport involved. So I was aided along the way by the runners that I inherited, all 25 or 26 of them. And I said, you know, let's try to make this better. Let's try to make this something that we're proud of and something that enhances our experience at St. X. And you know, if anything, the thing I'm most proud of about my legacy or whatever it is that we have people like Mike Daring who carried on and has built the program so far above where it was when I left it that it's hard for me to comprehend. And now it's in the hands of Andy Wheatmartian, who's one of my favorite people on the planet. If you want to hear funny things, just talk to Andy for a while. And he'll be wise and funny and down to earth. And the fact that these people are custodians of the program and making it into something even much better than it was when I was there is something that makes me very proud. So again, I'm grateful to the people who nominated me or made this happen. It's come so much out of the blue that here I am, totally unprepared, with nothing written down. And again, I'm not blaming Steve. I'm pretty sure that you probably said something and I blanked it out or something. I don't know. Anyway, I delivered the commencement address at St. Xavier High School a month or so ago, and I kind of obsessed on that. I had stuff written out, and then I'd revise it, and then I'd write it again. And my wife always tells me, Debbie says, don't say anything stupid and don't demean anybody, don't be negative. And, you know, Mike said, my goal is to be positive. My goal is to try to make everybody else positive. I said, I'm not negative. I don't have been negative. So, you know, I try to be positive, and so I'm positively shocked and amazed and humbled and gratified at this, all of you out there. All of you up here, congratulations. It's great meeting you. I'm sitting next to Bob Schul, who is a legend. And I Googled Bob just to make sure that it was really the guy that I thought it was. And I saw the last 3 laps of his Olympic gold medal performance, and here I am sitting next to him eating ribs. It's absolutely amazing. So thanks to all of you. I'm truly appreciative, and on with the evening. Thank you. I didn't need to.
Right. Thank you, Larry. Just a little tip here. If you ever come up and you feel unprepared again, here's a little note that you can say to yourself is in television when we don't have prompter or when everything just goes haywire, and we don't have notes or a lot of times I have to go off the top of my head in the mornings. I don't know if anyone knows that, but so a lot of times I'm doing things without notes. But when everything goes haywire, we say, do it live. Do it live. Everybody just says, do it live. We're like, we're going to do it live. Let's do it live. No notes, do it live. Yeah, let's do it live. Nobody ever knows. Well, usually, hopefully no one ever knows. On the other end, or no one watching knows that you're doing it unscripted, no notes. Sometimes those are the best shows. So you did a great job. You did an awesome job. Thank you, Larry. Do it live. All right, well, we will keep the program moving. At this time, we will have Frank Russo come up and introduce Steve Paget, who is our next inductee. Welcome, Frank.
All right, as a coach, you always hope that you get an opportunity to work with a once-in-a-lifetime athlete. For me, Steve was just that. Steve had it all. All-American talent, GCL toughness, dedication and determination second to none, and the command and respect that when he spoke, coaches, teachers, teammates, and peers in the classroom listened. Steve had everyone's respect at LaSalle. Steve is one example I bring to an athlete when he has an excuse why he has to miss practice. He was class president his sophomore and junior year, student body president senior year. He carried a demanding academic load and yet was able to make all his workouts ready for practice each and every day. I can't recall a time he ever missed. I must say, he did have some incredible people around him who influenced and shaped his attitudes toward being a leader in the classroom, on the track, and cross-country course. His mother, Nancy, was the type of parent that coaches appreciate and hope to work with during their son's 4-year experience. She was always there to support Steve while giving me the voice and influence I needed to develop Steve as a competitor. His older brother Dave was in the program back in the early 90s, during the Bockensteady, Fulmer, Paget, Sebring era. A highly competitive, hard-nosed, blue-collar group that would run a punishing tempo in practice each and every day. This feistiness was apparent on meet day, and Steve would soak it all in, intensity and competitive spirit. His brother Dave would set the tone for Steve's success. Dave was a 3-time state qualifier, receiving all state honors his senior year, signing a track and cross-country scholarship with Miami University in 1993. Steve would witness firsthand Bockenstedt's state cross-country title performance, nailing two-time Foot Locker All-American Jason Rexing from Pickerington during the fall of 1993. Putting an exclamation point on his career with his legendary performance in track, where he anchored the 3,200-meter relay in a time of 1:54 on Friday evening, came back Saturday afternoon with the temperatures on the track exceeding over 100 degrees. Doug would outkick a talented field in a 1,600-meter run in a time of 4:10, leading to the school's first state team title with a state record performance in the 3,200-meter run, sitting on Rexing for 6 laps before he took command of the race to set the state meet record of 9:07. That performance has never been duplicated. Steve had role models, not professional athletes, but high school athletes who he could relate to. His brother, teammates that would share, and alumni that would share his experience down the road. He was all part of that. When Steve came onto the scene, he made his presence known immediately. He was a 4-time state qualifier in cross country, a 3-time All-State recipient by the time he was a junior. He had received All-American honors during the indoor season at the Nike Indoor Classic, finishing 4th in 9:22. At that point, he began to make his way onto the national scene. This is where Steve was at his best. Steve loved high-stakes, highly competitive fields of competition in big venues. During his senior year, Steve, like Bockenstedt, would save his best for the championship season. During cross-country, Steve would face Smith from Hudson and replicate the same race strategy, outkicking his opponent as he entered the stadium at Scioto Downs. Steve would go on to finish 9th at the Foot Locker Nationals, just behind national superstar Alan Webb. As the internet was just catching on in spring of 2000, Steve came to me just weeks before the Roosevelt Memorial Invitational and said that he had contacted Dathan Ritzenheim and that Ritz was going to pull him through a sub-9-minute 3,200-meter run. He wanted to do what no other athlete in Cincinnati history had ever done. Steve thought big. Just days before, Steve would come back to me and let me know that Ritz had contacted him and that he would be attempting to break the American record. Ritz would set a blistering pace, finishing in 8:41. Steve would realize his dream and would break the 9-minute barrier, running 8:56. He accomplished his goal. Steve always put the team first. During the track season of his senior year, he would triple in the GCL championship, 3 races in less than 2 hours. He would go on and win both the 1,600 and 3,200-meter run, but was edged at the line in the 800, and as he led up the last few steps before the finish line, a runner from Elder leaned across the line. Steve gave the guy a shove as he crossed the line. That was part of his toughness, that hard-nosed attitude of the program that he had witnessed being around during his grade school years from Dean and Scotty. The following week at the district, Steve would face 3 of the toughest milers in Cincinnati history: Mason Ward of Coleraine, Jerry Clonch of Lakota, and teammate Alan Bader. In what I believe is the greatest high school district 1,600-meter run in Cincinnati history, Mason Ward would win the race in 4:09, Clonch 4:10, Steve 4:11, and Alan Bader 4:13. The race results would finish in similar fashion the following week at the regionals in the 1,600. Steve would punctuate his performance running 9:07 in the 3,200-meter run on that day, nearly the same double as Doug had done 6 years before at the state meet. To conclude his high school career, Steve came to me just days before the state meet, and said, "If we got a chance to win the state championship as a team, I'll double. If not, I want to break Doug's record." Steve would go on to set a new state meet record during that day, running 9 flat. A few weeks later, he would break his city record of 8:56, running 8:54 at Golden West. His record still stands today. I'm pleased to announce LaSalle legend, Steve Paget.
You went and sat down before I give you a hug, Frank. So I'm going to do it semi-live. Put it that way. Semi-live. Do it that way. I first wanted to say how honored I am to be up here amongst this panel. I honestly did not know what to expect of this banquet, of this ceremony. I told my wife, Jenny, I said, there could be 12 people there. There could be 100 people there. I don't know. but to be in the company of Bob Schul, of you, all these people, I said, Jenny, you don't understand Bob Schul. That's Michael Jordan of running. I said, we are in, this is celebrity right here. And it's just such an honor to be even considered close to one of your peers. I don't feel worthy, but it's very exciting for me. So I'm very appreciated to be honored. Another thing that I'm really honored to be a part of and to represent is the GCL. You know, the St. X table up here. You know, I'm honored to have run against you guys, run with you guys, become friends over the years with a lot of you guys. And it's just a great honor to represent the GCL. The GCL creates an environment to run like no other. I've run on a lot of different levels, Big Ten championship, MAC championship, national level. There is nothing that compares to running up that last hill at Rapid Run Park at the GCL championship, people screaming in your face from this far away. And there's, 4 teams from the GCL South that are in that. So it was just an honor to be a part of your careers and have you be a part of mine. Frank mentioned my mother. I'm not going to say too much because I'll get choked up about that one, but the support that my mom gave me is paramount. And that's all I'll say about that. Frank touched on that, but I inherited her emotional side as well, so we'll let that be for now. Frank, running in your program was life-changing. And here we go. Thanks, Mom, for in here. But seriously, the confidence that you instill in young men, the drive, the ferocity with which you approach coaching and treating high school athletes like they're professional athletes, it has driven me to succeed in athletics, and then not only in athletics, as in life. And I carry that competitive spirit today. And you were very much and still are like a father to me, and thank you for those years. So let's get a little bit more lighthearted now. So when I found out that I was going to be inducted, Frank had posted something, I think, on Facebook. And my neighbor, not knowing anything about that I had been a runner, because I haven't been involved in the competitive aspect of running for quite some time now, several years. And he sent me a text. He said, Steve, I didn't know I was living next door to a running legend. I said, well, yeah, now more like John Candy and Cool Runnings. So I said, but, and then my wife would say to me, she said, you're such a good runner. Why didn't you become pro? And I said, Jenny, you don't understand. Being pro as a runner, being one of the best Olympians, you got to be Kobe or LeBron to be, in your sport. It's not like 100 guys are going to the draft and making it. You got to be Kobe or LeBron. But what I realized as I thought about that is the aspects that led me to be successful as a runner have carried on. And just to give you 2 examples, I have 2 kind of short stories of things that I learned as a runner that have helped me be successful in life. And so the first one was when I was very young. As Frank mentioned, I grew up watching a lot of these great distance runners, LaSalle distance runners. We talked about James Devaney, and we talked about Ryan Mullen and Doug Bockensteady, all these GCL runners that were just, at my point, this old, they were like professional athletes to me, and I admired them immensely. And so I was a freshman in high school at LaSalle, and Frank had this way of somehow always ending a run on a massive hill that was would just break you. He would drive an 18-passenger van out just so we could run 10 miles to hit a big hill. And there was a hill, there's a Brim Hill, the one out by St. John's, right? And so this hill goes up, 3/4 of a mile long or something like that, but it kind of flattens out and then it goes up. And so I'm 14 years old, I'm a freshman, and I start walking halfway up it. And all of a sudden I hear, "Don't walk!" And I look back, and Doug Bockensteady, Dean Fulmer, AKA the Animal, are sprinting up this hill it was just the most embarrassing moment of my life to that point, because my idols are sitting there catching me, slacking off. And from that moment on, I never walked. And anything I did in life, I never walked. So that was a very profound moment, a small moment when I was 14 years old that I've carried to this day. Now the second story is one that Frank kind of already told. And that was a story with Dathan Ritzenheim. For those of you that don't know Dathan was a multi-NCAA champion. He's an Olympian now. He's the top American marathoner now. But I did. I got to know him really well. I was on the same Foot Locker team as him. And I got in touch with Dathan, and I said, Dathan, I'd like to break 9 minutes. No one's ever done that in Cincinnati, at least not recently. And he said, well, that's great, Steve, but I'm trying to break Prefontaine's record. And I'm like, so what that taught me, I said, all right, well, you go do that. And so what that taught me is that it's about goal setting in life. No matter what, never settle. There's always someone who's better. There's always another bar to raise. And I've tried to always keep that as part of my life. And what is so sentimental to me is that I know that all of you share those same values and same goals, and I'm really honored to be recognized as a part of this community. And thank you very, very much for recognizing me today and even thinking of me as even remotely to the caliber of this panel here. So thank you.
Let's give it up again for Steve. He did it semi-live. I think he had a little bit of preparation there, but he was still kind of live. Thank you, Steve. About cross-country running and just long-distance running in general, of course I have a story about that as well. I ran track. Oh, it is not worth that little oh there, Louis. Let me continue. I am from a little town in Indy called Speedway. The Indy 500, okay? But outside of the Indy 500, it's a very small place. So that is where I grew up, and that is where I ran track. I was a Speedway High School spark plug, okay? I ran the 4x1 and the 4x2, not with any outstanding numbers or anything of that nature. I did long jump. I did that as well. It should have been like middle jump because it really wasn't that long. Okay, so that's my track and field history. But I say all that to say that I would always, always, always be amazed after practice because the cross-country team would still be going. We'd be like 3 hours in, and everybody's packing up, let's go. But they're still running, like they're still going. They're going around the school, and they're going down by the 500 track, and they're all over. And the tenacity that exists in a cross-country and long-distance runner is incomparable. So thank you, Steve. Thank you for taking that task and being amazing at it. All right, we'll bring up our next introducer, is that a word? It might be, I'll make it up. Jim Schnur, he will come up and introduce Mary Weinberg.
Hey, what a great program. I wanted to thank Steve Nestor also. He's put this together for a few years, obviously, and what a fantastic program. It's great for me to be able to come back and see a lot of people in track and field still. I've been out of track and field for a few years since I've stopped coaching Mary, and just to come back and see a lot of my athletes and see how well people are doing. LaSalle High School, obviously, and Xavier High School, guys are doing great. And I see a lot of All-Americans here, and some were my athletes, and then some ran for Miami, and but what a fantastic group! It's just amazing. My name is Jim Schnur. I had a chance to coach for University of Cincinnati for about 25 years, and what a great time! I really enjoyed that. I had the opportunity to work with a lot of fantastic people, a lot of great athletes, but really a lot of fantastic people. And I had to spend my time coaching these youngsters and watch them grow into men and women. And it was just amazing for me. I really enjoyed it, and what an amazing time. For me to come back and see a lot of these athletes here is just it's very special. At UC, we coached, when I first came to UC, Bill Schneer, the head coach, had me in as assistant, and at first we just coached men. We coached men for a while, and we had a good team. We started off with a smaller team, and we weren't that good, and then we got a little better, and we got a little better, and we had a little bigger team. Then somewhere along the line, we had something like 62 people, and we had a pretty good program. We started beating almost everybody we ran against, and at some point in the time, it came out that UC wanted to start a women's track and field program, like they should have. And it's very interesting. When we started off, the first year we had no scholarships, and we had just people who were interested in running, which was nice. You know, there were a lot of interest in women's track and field. And then the second year we got scholarships, and it just really changed. We were able to go out and scholarship the people that we thought might do well. And one of my first recruits was a girl from Walnut Hills High School, Mary Danner. She, I didn't know who she was at first. And it's kind of funny that actually I was kind of introduced to Mary by Bob Ronker. I was at the district meet in Anderson High School, and Bob was doing a fantastic job of calling the meet. A little bit like Lewis Johnson might do today. He knew who the people are, and he knew what they were doing, and there was a lot of good athletes out there. And I think I was recruiting pole vaulters, and I was recruiting a little bit of everybody at that time. But Bob was announcing the meet, and he talked about a girl who was coming around the curve for Walnut Hills High School. Was Mary Danner, was coming around the curve in the district meet. And I knew I was supposed to be watching her, so it picked up my interest. I looked out there, and there she was. And I saw a tall, very thin girl from Walnut Hills, and she was running quite fast. She looked really good, looked very good for probably the first 100 yards of that 200. And then she kind of was getting close to the finish line, but she seemed to, kind of stop slowing down. You start slowing down a little bit, and anyway, it was very interesting. She ran the quarter. She ran on the relays. She was fast. Had a lot of good qualities. So I told Bill that we ought to recruit her, and I thought that she was a scholarship athlete. And the reason why she was a scholarship athlete in those days was because we had a very new team. It was hard for us. We couldn't point to our history and say, hey, we have all these girls here, we've trained these girls. We actually hadn't trained too many people. So although our men's team was good, it was very good, it was a little bit of a hard sell for women. So we thought that we'd scholarship Mary. I thought that there's something about Mary that interested me, and I thought that she could be a good quarter miler. And I thought that at the time, we over scholarship. I think we gave her a pretty big scholarship. I thought it was like 3/4 of a scholarship. And then in later years, I found out that I probably under scholarship Mary. And so Mary started off, and I know the program. The program's very good. Actually, the program kind of took a lot of my speech away because it kind of went over some of the things that I thought I would. But Mary started off, and she did well for us. She ran indoors well. She ran outdoors well. She became our school record holder. She kept getting better. She kept training and getting better. Her training was getting better. At first, she possibly didn't train as well as she could have, but then she kept getting better and better and better. When she left, she was running in the 53s, which was very, very good, quite good. She did not win the conference meet. We were in a conference, and the University of Houston recruited a girl in, and she was running the 52s, and Mary ran a 53, a very good race, but she didn't win. And then when we graduated, Mary, she was what would you say? A mid-level runner who was very good, could compete on the college level quite well. However, she came to me and she talked to me after her career was over, college career was over, and she said that she wanted to continue. She said that she thought that she could do better. I had to agree with her. I thought that she could do better. So we talked about how training should change and the commitment and all this type of stuff, and she agreed that she should do that. And what Lou said, very interesting, and what a lot of people were saying is very interesting because Mary had a choice there. She had a choice. She could have not run anymore. She could have gone out as a school record holder in the 400, and she chose to train, and so she trained on, and at first she had a hard time of it, and that every year she seemed to get a little better. She got a little better and a little better and a little better. Our training got tougher. The people that she ran against were a lot better than they used to be. These people that used to beat her in college, all of a sudden, they weren't beating her anymore. And so we kept training. She started making a lot of the meets that were the national meets. She started running in meets like the Kansas relays and winning them. She started going around the country and winning meets. She also had the opportunity to go internationally, and she won meets internationally. She won a meet in Japan. She went on the Europe circuit, and it's kind of a tough circuit. A lot of really good people over there. The Europeans were also trying to be the best they could, and I think she ran in Rome, she ran in Paris, she ran in Amsterdam, and she was finishing 4th, 5th over there. 2007 happened, and Mary really took off. She started running, the meets were really good. She started competing at a higher and higher level. It's so tough to get sponsorship when you're running on this level. She was, some years she would be 10th, some years she would be ranked as high as 8th in the country, and an 8th in the country receives 0 sponsorship. And again, you might a company might give you shoes and let you run in their jerseys and things like that, but it was very tough. It's very hard to make it. In 2007, Mary finished 3rd in the national meet, and then people were really taking notice of Mary. She got some sponsorship, but more than that, I went to the meet with Mary, and we were walking around the meet, and everybody knew Mary. Allison Felix knew Mary. All the best runners knew Mary. They knew that she was, what kind of competitor she was, and they saw her working her way up through the ranks, and they were taking notice. And so she had a lot of friends. A lot of things were going on. She was running. She had run on the relays for the United States team. She had run in a World Championships, and she was. I think in 2006, she was on a team that got the silver medal for the 4x4 relay in the World Championships. In 2007, she was on the World Championship team that got the gold medal. And then we came up to 2008, and things were going along great. Everything was working pretty well. But we did have problems. We're training so hard. We're trying to make that edge. We're trying to develop, that champion, that gold medalist. And we had some things called injury come into play. So we had some ups and downs. It wasn't all just improvement all the time and everything. When you ran on that level, running against great people every week, things became a lot harder. And so she worked through those problems. And I think everybody realizes that in 2008, Mary was able to make the Olympic team. She went to the Olympics. She was able to win a gold medal on that relay team, on the 4x4 relay team. And I was just thinking of all the people here in the city, all the people that we've talked to that, myself included, that had that goal in their mind, that they wanted to be an Olympic champion. They wanted to get that Olympic gold. And how special it is to actually come through and get that goal. There's not too many people that do that. We have a few up here at the podium tonight that are able to accomplish that goal. But it's very, very special. And I want to just talk a little bit about Mary. Mary has fantastic character. She wouldn't have been able to get through this whole process if it wasn't for her character. She did an amazing job. She ran through injuries. We try to limit that a lot. But what a great journey. I mean, to run against these fantastic runners week in and week out, get yourself ready. The mental aspect of that is just daunting, to be able to run on that level and keep that going, and knowing that, if you succeeded, won that race, that it means, possible sponsorship and maybe being to train a little bit easier and that type of thing. I want to thank another person here tonight for Mary's accomplishments, and that's Chris Weinberg. Chris, we used to call Chris Sonia. He was her training partner, and Chris was out there every day with Mary, and he a lot of times led the way. Sometimes she led the way, but it was great that Chris was along her side at all times, and every training practice that we had, Chris was out there, setting the pace and making sure that she had what she needed. So that was pretty amazing. Anyway, without anything further, I'd like to introduce Mary Weinberg.
So I told myself that I was not going to cry today, and hopefully the tears will not start running down my eyes. I'm a little emotional. It could be because I'm 5 months pregnant. It could be because all the great things that Jim had to say, but just please bear with me. So last night I took some time. I was thinking about all the things that I wanted to say after being presented with this award today. Rather than to revisit and confirm some of the many nice things that Coach Jim had to say, and I'm so happy that he didn't really tell you guys how I used to give him a hard time sometimes at practice. I used to tell him, Jim, can I just get out of this last workout? Can I just do this? Or can you only make me do 6? Or can you only make me do 4? So thank you, Jim, for not embarrassing me with that. Or I could stand up here and tell you all about how much I enjoyed making the 2008 Beijing Olympic team. Or even better, how much I'm thankful for the path that my life and my career in running not only took in high school, but in college and beyond. I may not have been the greatest athlete in high school. I actually was very far from it. I had made the state meet. I had never made it to the finals, and a lot of people didn't think that I would go very far. I realized that we all have to start somewhere, and for me, my time had not yet come. I was basically a true late blooming flower. I can remember meeting Simon Richards and some other of the athletes, and we were talking, and they kind of were like, Mary, where did you come from? And I honestly had to think back, and as I compared myself to some of the resumes of these young ladies, it was amazing to just be standing there with them. And they actually, in 2007, they gave me the nickname Late Bloomer. So I took it. I said, okay, I'll be the late bloomer. That's okay. I can stand here in front of you all this evening and admit that I had never thought that I could be a world champion, let alone an Olympian. It's interesting what talent and dedication, and of course having a great coach who was very patient with me like Jim. And most of all, it was interesting to have someone by my side, as he introduced before, my husband, Chris, who ran the workouts. He took it when I would say, Chris, this hurts so bad, I don't want to do this anymore. And he just was very encouraging. I want to thank him for that, so thank you. Thank you. And I want to also go back to Jim, and I want to thank him also for believing in me, because I think, Jim, it really was through you that I just allowed myself to believe in myself and know that I could get there. So I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I also cannot forget all the many calls and the words of encouragement that came from both family and friends, and from some of you here today. I'd just like to take a moment really quick to thank my family, who is over there at that table, who came, and then also my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, and of course my daughter, Brooklyn, and I'll get to my sorority sisters a little bit later, but thank you. I also would like to mention my high school coach, who is not here today, but his name was Carl Kaufman from Walnut Hills High School. I want to thank him for encouraging me to, come out for the team at Walnut and to run, because I will be honest with you all, the only reason I ran track in high school was to have friends. I thought it was like, oh, that'll be cool. I can run track, I can make friends, have friends, and it was more of a social scene. And so I realized that these long legs could get me around the track really fast. So I'm very thankful for that. And I want to thank all of my college coaches. Some of them are here today, who, of course, encouraged me. Mentors that I experienced and I met throughout my college years and even currently. A lot of teachers, a lot of professors, and of course going back to my sorority sisters who are here today. That's just to name a few. There are so many people out there and so many close friends of my family that have just been so encouraging and so supportive. I just want to thank you all. You all have served as supporters and fans, not only for me, but to the sport of track and field. And I thank you guys for that. I want to just take a quick moment to just thank, of course, the Greater Cincinnati Running Hall of Fame Committee on considering me for this award. There were so many, oh my goodness, so many great individuals, and I'm just truly honored to be standing here today. I also would like to say congratulations to all the other inductees. We make an awesome 2014 class, so let's give ourselves a big round of applause. And usually I do a lot of speaking, mostly motivational, to a lot of the high schools and schools here in the city, businesses and companies. And I just really embrace on the fact that I want people to know that you can always strive for your dreams. That's one of my key things that I have listed on my website page. And I'm truly standing here as a firm believer that, yes, you can strive for your dreams. To be able to sum up my life story and really my career, I can just truly say that I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be able to have a husband who has been through everything with me, especially with track and field. I'm blessed to have a daughter who is supportive, and even though she may not quite understand what this gold medal means, she will tell people, my mommy has a gold. She has a gold medal. So eventually, hopefully, she will be able to understand that, and I'm just so thankful. One interesting thing about being here this evening is it's actually my daughter's birthday. She is 5 years old today. And the month of August in the beginning is always an exciting time in that my husband and I, we had our daughter on the 3rd and we celebrate our anniversary on August the 5th. And every year we think, how can we top our anniversary? How can we top it? So I'm just gonna go back a little bit in time to kind of discuss some of the things that happened and occurred for us throughout our years and how interesting our anniversaries have been. I can remember, of course, I got married in 2006. That was our first year. And then after that, oh my goodness, we experienced attending the World Championships in Osaka, Japan, and I was thankful to be able to have my husband there with me. In 2008, it got even better. In August, it was the Olympics. He got to see me win an Olympic gold medal. Oh my goodness, it gets better. 2009, my post-Olympic baby, Brooklyn, is born, and that was just an amazing thing. And then the following years after that, I had never been to Disney World, and I said, you know what? I want to go to Disney World. And so for me, that was just another big thing. And now it just leads up to this, being inducted into the Greater Cincinnati Running Hall of Fame. Who could top that? So these are such great memories. And I just want to thank everyone, and I hope everyone has had a good night so far. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for Mary Weinberg. Coach Jim said, there is something about Mary. When I first moved here, I've been here for about 2.5 years now with Channel 5, and I would meet people, and they would find out I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, and they would say, well, have you met Mary Weinberg? No, not yet. Olympian, the gold medalist. Mary Weinberg, have you met her? No, I haven't quite run into her. This is like my second day in. No, I haven't met her yet. So I go on about you're a member. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa. Have you met Mary Weinberg? I wouldn't even get it all the way out. Have you met Mary Weinberg? So I am thankful. And this is not my first time meeting Mary. We've met before, and we've exchanged numbers and everything. So he's right. There is something about Mary. So it's an honor and a privilege to know her and to honor her tonight. So at this time, we will bring up my friend again, Bill Schneer, and he will introduce our keynote speaker. Welcome, Bill, again.
Okay, so we're done with the induction part of the evening, and now we are blessed with the presence of Olympian Bob Schul. If you remember last year, we had Billy Mills, Olympic gold, 10,000 meters, Tokyo 1964. And today we have Bob Schul, Olympic gold, 5,000 meters, Tokyo 1964. So it's really been 50 years since an American has won an Olympic gold medal in the distance races. The emergence of the Kenyans and the Ethiopians has made that a very difficult task, and yet we've had those these last 2 years here in Cincinnati. Billy came from Kansas, from an Indian reservation, ran for University of Kansas, and Bob came from West Milton, Ohio, a farm outside of West Milton, ran for Miami University. And both are really distinguished. Bob also, in addition to the Olympic gold, had 5 American records and 1 world record. His time at West Milton was difficult. He had asthma, and if you ever tried to bale hay with asthma or ever tried to run with asthma, it posed big problems, and that was a problem for Billy, for Bob. But if you heard some of the talks tonight, most of them had to do with overcoming obstacles, and this was no exception. So Bob ended up running 4:34, 2:04, and Lewis 51.5 in the 400 meters, the same as you did in high school. But then he went on to Miami University, ran 4:12 at Miami, but then joined the United States Air Force and went to California. That was fortunate for Bob because at that point he met the great Hungarian coach Mihaly Igloy, who had a different style of coaching and really turned Bob's running around. And so the question is, how can you best coach a distance runner? And in the early days, back in the turn of the 1900s, a person would run a mile and then wait a few days, then they would run another mile, then they would wait a few days, then they would run another mile in hopes that eventually, with this specificity of training, they could run a real fast mile in a race. Well, those other coaches have tried different things. For instance, Arthur Lydiard had marathon training where even his 800 runners were running 100-mile weeks. And Percy Cerruti in Australia would have runners running up the hills. And today the Kenyans go out for about 6 miles, about as slow as a human being could run, and then they come back at tempo pace, which would be PRs for everyone else, and they get from that place to this. But in case of Mihaly Igloy, who was producing the Olympians and Olympic champions in a small neighborhood in Hungary, his plan was to run an abundance of short distances, like 100s and 150s and 200s and 250s and 300s. So that was unheard of, but it really did wonders for Bob. I never met Mihaly Igloy, but I did have lunch in 2008 with Bob and the great Hungarian Laszlo Tabori, and they talked about Igloy and some of the great things that he's done. But Bob, after his running career was over, did some coaching, Wright State University on 2 separate occasions, Centerville High School, and also club coaching for people who came to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and still wanted to run, much like Lewis and much like Mary. Their work wasn't done. And he did some wonderful work with some of those people, especially a man named Brett Hyde, who had very ordinary credentials but almost made the U.S. Olympic team. I was fortunate to train with Bob for 3 or 4 months one summer at Troy High School and saw firsthand the wisdom that Mihaly Igloy passed on to Bob, and Bob then in turn passed on to the rest of us. So you'll come to realize that Bob is very confident, he's very intelligent, he's very insightful. He absolutely expects to win. And he was the only American distance runner ever to be favored in the Olympic Games to actually win. And that might seem easy, but it really isn't. It's very difficult. So last year we had Billy Mills, Indian Reservation in Kansas. This year we have Bob Schul, farm boy from West Milton, Ohio, Miami University, both true blue Americans, both Olympic gold medalists. So let's hear it for Bob.
Well, I think he says hi. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. He told you all about my youth. My mother says I almost died a couple times as a baby from asthma. In those days, it wasn't much to do except run to the doctor and get an adrenaline shot. And that's exactly what happened. I can remember growing up, having an asthma attack and laying on the couch and learning to breathe slowly and deeply. If you breathe too fast, it just collapsed the bronchial tubes and didn't get any air. And then I would come around after an hour or two. The next day, my sides were so sore that somebody felt like somebody had beat me because I had used those muscles so much. Somebody used to tell me, he says, well, that's why you can run so fast. You learn how to get more air in your lungs. I said, well, I'd like to have done it another way. Now, you notice I went back to the bathroom a little bit ago. Well, one of the things that you find out when you're public speaking is you want to be sure you don't have any lettuce in your teeth. And I always go back and I check just after dinner to be sure it's all okay there. But Bill mentioned some of my youth, and he talked about Igloy. Real quickly, Igloy was the national coach of Hungary in the 50s. He had learned his, he put together, let's put it that way, he put together his program while he was a prisoner of the Russians, like in World War II in Siberia. How he got the books there, read about the English and the Germans and what have you, I don't know. Never found that one out. But he came out of that, put together a running club. He had athletes, Maury was one of them, Roosevelt, Ishros, held all the world records from 1,500 meters to 10,000 meters. Hungary, the size of Ohio. It was unbelievable. And so when he came to this country, he was the national coach in 1956 in Melbourne. They didn't do well there. In fact, most of the athletes didn't even go. And the reason for that was that the Russians were in control of Hungary. Remember that? After World War II, they took over the entire Eastern Bloc. Well, Lazo Taborik did okay in a 5K, but didn't do real well. They were having a lot of problems back home. They were upset about their families, what was going to happen to them, etc. The games were over, and Igloy was on his way, supposedly back to Hungary. Went to the airport, and simply wasn't in a place where there were planes going to Hungary. In this case, he was in a place where they were going to England. He looked across this vast area where the planes were, where he was, and he saw his other athlete, Laszlo Taborik. And they walked towards each other, and they almost said simultaneously, why are you here? I heard you in the other concourse where we're going back to Hungary. And Igloy looked and says, because I'm taking the sun. I'm going to England. Laszlo looked and says, so am I. And so they both got to play in England. They spent some time there, didn't like it. It was too cold in London. So they came to the United States on the East Coast. And that's where one of my friends, still friend, one of the great distance runners in the United States, Jim Beatty, lived. Beatty wasn't a terrific athlete at that time. He had run okay in college, but at the same time, not great. Igloy spent maybe 6 months there and got a report that he could be hired in San Jose to be a coach of a club team. And so he took it. He needed a job. Very truthful. So he went out and started his club team. And he had a few so-so runners. One day, Jim Beatty looked himself in the mirror and said, you know, if I'm going to be a runner, I've got to go to California. Which he did. Started with Igloy, and within a year, Beatty was our top distance runner in the United States. He was a good athlete, trained well. Igloy knew what he was doing. I was in Oxnard at that time, California, and my commanding officer was Max Truex. Now, you're too young. I'm going to be 77 here in September, and most of you weren't even born in 1964. So I got to tell you these things so you understand how the United States came up to a par with the rest of the world. So one day, Max said, Bob, he says, I'm going to send you up to San Jose to train with Igloy. And I said, really? That'd be great. Now, Max was an officer, and I was an enlisted man. And so he couldn't do it himself, obviously. He was only a second lieutenant, just came out of Southern Cal. So he had to get permission from somebody else real high to do this. But eventually it came through, and I drove my MG up to San Jose. I remember walking into the area where they were training and saw them jogging around the track. There were probably 30 or 40 people. They were 2 by 2, long line, going around the track. And I noticed the people leading, Laszlo Tabori and Jim Beatty, and everybody else was back. Now I walked down the field, and here was this man in a tie on the other side, and I recognized him from the pictures I'd seen. And I walked over to Igloy, and I said, Coach, my name is Bob Schul, and I was sent here by Max Truex, and he was training Max a little bit by mail. No, it wasn't through the computer in those days. It was by mail. And he looked at me and he says, who are you? And I said, well, my name's Bob Schul. Max told me I should come up here, and he was going to tell you I was going to train with you. And he says, Max, no tell. And I said, well, I'm here. I drove all the way from near Los Angeles, and he said, where is Los Angeles? And I said, well, it's pretty far away. It took me 8 or 9 hours to get here to my MG. And I said, you think I can train with you? Well, he stood there for what seemed like a long time. It probably wasn't more than 20, 30 seconds. And finally says, okay, I will train you for the 2 weeks you're here. He said, not tonight. You'll only watch. And I watched. And I couldn't believe what these guys were doing. And a few ladies too, by the way. They were doing things that I never thought. I thought Max was giving me some pretty good workouts because he was getting from Igloy, he'd pass them on. But I wasn't training near as hard as these people were training. Well, went back to a place where they had, Max had got me a room. It wasn't quite a room. It was a couch. It was in a house with a lot of other his athletes. There were 4 of them that rented this house. They all had their own little bedroom, and I had the couch. And I said, it looked pretty difficult out there. You guys are really training hard. And he looked at me, he says, well, that wasn't so hard. He says, sometimes it's much harder. And I thought, wow, okay. Next morning, I was out there at 7:30, which was a little late, truthfully. At the time, you know, I could sleep in a little bit. And he said, that's okay, you come at 7:30. But some of the guys had been there at 5 o'clock, even 5:30, because they had work to do too. Not like today, where these people get $250,000 and don't do anything except take a massage, a whirlpool, you know, eat a little ice cream, or take a nap. And, you know. So anyway, I showed up, and these guys were, some of them were finishing, some of them were just up, ready to finish. Well, one other person was just jogging around, and I thought, oh, at least there's one other person that hasn't trained yet. But that person happened to be Laszlo Tabori. Well, I warmed up. He told me to run a mile, so I jogged around for a mile, came back, and Laszlo and Igloy were sort of bantering in Hungarian. So I was not privileged to understand what they were doing. But anyway, I stood there and waited a little bit, and pretty soon, and by the way, their voices were a little bit elevated, as if maybe it was an argument. But I stood and waited. Pretty soon, Laszlo trotted off. And I looked at Igloy, and he says, go with Laszlo. And I said, well, it's none but the great Laszlo Tabori. Laszlo Tabori held the world record for 1,500 meters. I was going to turn to Laszlo. He was a little older now. He was still one of the best runners in the United States. Not a citizen. We ran a lot of races against our people, and seldom lost. But anyway, I fed up with Laszlo. And I said, Laszlo, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Bob Schul. And he says, I know. And I thought, oops. And I thought, well, I'll try again. I guess I'm supposed to run with you. What are we going to do? We stopped. And he looked at me and he says, look, just do what I do. And I thought, ooh, I think that was an argument. I don't think he wants me here. Well, anyway, he started jogging again, and I thought, well, better go with him. But I didn't know I was going to run. If he started running, I guess I'd start to run, but we were jogging now. We got to a point, and he took off. And I took off after him. But he had his stems on me, so I had to catch up to him. And we went around and around and around for 5 miles. Of sprints up one side, jogging a bit, another sprint down the other side, sometimes 150 meters, some 100 meters. When I finished up, I was pretty tired. I thought I was in pretty good shape, but now I was pretty tired. And so we were finished. Another 5 miles in, went back to the place where I was staying. And most of the guys were, some of them had already left for work, others were getting ready to go to work. Joe Douglas was now with the Santa Monica Track Club, still is. He was in the house, and he said, well, how'd it go? And I lied. I never well. Not well. And I laid down on the floor. Laid down in the middle of the carpet in the living room and looked at the ceiling. And he walked over me and went out the door. It was time after he got dressed. And I continued to lie on the floor. About noon, I was getting hungry. I had to eat breakfast. So I went to the refrigerator and scrounged up something and ate the sandwich and laid back down on the floor. Well, I was still laying there when they came home. And they walked around me. And finally Joe came in. He was a math teacher at the time. And he came in and he just gone into his room and he stopped, he turned around and he says, no, he says, Big Lloyd's gonna like you. I thought to myself, what's he talking about? How does he know anything about Big Lloyd liking me? And without me answering, he said, Big Lloyd likes people who get dressed early. He knew. He knew. So anyway, we went out to work out. Laszlo and Jim Beatty always led the group for a mile to warm up, nice and relaxed. And I came out and I started to jog, and I moved up the line. I was about maybe the 4th spot and trying to move in, and somebody gave me a pretty good elbow. And I went back a couple and tried to move in, and somebody gave me an elbow. Well, I found out it was pecking order. And I wasn't in part of the chickens at this point. And therefore, I was going to be at the end. And I just walked, waited until the end came, and started jogging in last position. We came to the part where he started parceling out the workouts. Some of the people trained by themselves. Beatty did. 1 or 2 others. But most of them were 3 or 4 in a group. He gave them their workout, and they would start doing whatever they're supposed to do. 160, 200, 300, whatever. Different speeds. Fresh, good, very good, good build-ups. And I kept thinking about do some of those terms, because Max had told me about it. But I wasn't sure what they all meant. And so he had everybody out except 2 people. Yes, Laszlo Tabori and me. He said, gave Laszlo the workout in Hungarian, And then Lonzo started jogging away. He said, "Go with Lonzo." I caught up to him, and for some reason, Lonzo was friendlier. He didn't say a lot. And I asked him what we were going to do. He even told me what we were going to do, which was kind of nice. And so we ran together. After each set, we go back to Eagle and get the next set. After 3 sets, I was beat. Lazo had just torn my body up. And yet he went on to another set. And I thought, how did he do that? How can he do that? Well, I was there for 2 weeks. Every morning, I was Lazo. Every evening, room with Lazo. Every morning, every evening with Lazo. Both of my bursa and my hips got sore. I was in pain. I wasn't going to give up. I didn't let him know they were sore. It lasted about 4 or 5 days, and then it miraculously cleared up. I don't know why, but it did. Went back to the base. People always said, "You can't leave." And I said, "Coach, I got to leave. I'm in the Air Force. If I don't get back there by tomorrow night, I could be in the, the Huskow." Well, he understood that. He had been in the military, that's why he was in prison. Back in the Russian days. So anyway, I went back and had a few meets at the Air Force meet. And I was running the steeplechase at that time, by the way. Everybody knows what that is, right? Yeah, you got hurdles, you got a water jump, and blah, blah, blah. Right? I kind of liked it. It was different. It's different. But I wasn't really, I hadn't been into it very long. I had run it like 4 or 5 times in my life, and I was getting better, but I didn't know how good I could be. And it came up to the national championship meet. And I qualified through the Armed Forces meet. And we got into this meet, and of course the NCAA champ was there, right? The entire United States. Anybody who qualified was there. Collegiate, open, athletes, etc. Well, we got to about 1 lap to go, and I was still up in the pack, except for 2 guys who were out front. Army guys. Both very good athletes, George Young and Deacon Jones. They were 1 and 2 in the United States. Even though they were in the Army, it became different. I don't think they had to work too much. They just got to train a lot. In my case, they didn't give me any time off. I had to do my 8-hour shift. Well, that's what you get when you're enlisted, man, I guess. Maybe. But anyway, so we got to the point where we had 300 meters to go. And we're going over a hurdle. And the NCAA champion's on my inside, and I'm on his outside, and we bump. He kind of goes to the inside a little bit, I kind of go out to the outside a little bit, and it wakes me up. And I think to myself, what are you doing, Bob? Get out of here. I wasn't that tired. You're not that tired. I always thought this. And so I started to sprint. Well, what I call a sprint at the time. And I came in 3rd behind the 2 other Army, and I was catching one of them. He beat me by about 15, 20 yards, but I was closing. And I thought, well, you can run a heck of a lot faster than that. Well, usually they only take 2 people on a team, because it's 2 people against 2 people, and you run against 4 countries. And we were going to go to Russia. I wouldn't run that meet because I was the number 3 person. I was one of the subs, so to speak. And I watched the Russians, distance runners, and pretty much after 1,500 meters, they were beating the heck out of us. 5,000, 10,000, open walks, 20K, 50K. We just couldn't stay up with them. In fact, at one time, I can remember I was sitting on the grass, just watching the meet, and one of the Russian walkers came in, and he was so far ahead of the American. And the Russian was in 2nd, too. He came in, and there were probably 80,000 people in the stadium. He took off, they all wore these little beanies that cyclists wear at times. Took it off, put on his finger, and twirled it. And I thought, you know, he's just, number one, showing off. And number two, it's a put down to the Americans. And I think probably a lot of the Americans said, this can't happen again. We've got to do something about it as far as distance running is concerned. Well, next meet was Germany. I got to run. I'm pure German. So there were 3 Germans in the race, along with one African American, Deacon Jones, who went to Boys Town in Iowa. He was one of those good guys that had beat me in the NCAA or in the AU. And so when we got into the race, I took the lead with about 3 laps to go. And I was chugging along, and I thought, this is pretty neat. I'm going to win my first international meet. Well, that'd be a good for my ego, right? So I'm coming around, over the water jump. I've got about 150 meters to go. There's one more hurdle, 70 meters from the finish. So I'm over the hurdle, I'm in the air, and swoosh. While I'm in the air, the other American has already gone by me, and now he's digging for the finish line. He's already got 2 meters or 3 meters on me, till I hit the ground again. I thought that was ridiculous. I must be terrible over this hurdle. So I go after him. And I get within that far. And he beats me. Was I ticked off? Well, anyway. Raced against the English the next weekend. Didn't do very well against them. Had a little problem with the calf. But I pulled after I was angry with myself. I did some hurdling and did it so long that I tore a muscle in my calf. And I thought, how stupid are you to do something like that? And so I stood over in Europe for a couple months, actually. Until the Air Force sent a memo to me and a Marine and an Army guy. They're both good athletes, obviously. One was a javelin thrower, one was a pole vaulter. And maybe I'll get the same memo from the State Department, actually, I think. It says, get your home immediately. You will catch the next aircraft back to your base. So we did. You don't mess around with those telegrams. So I got back. Well, that was 1961. In 1962, I was running pretty good. I was on a world record pace for the steeplechase and one meet. In the last part, I didn't have any energy. The last 2 laps, it just felt like, it wasn't that I was tired. I didn't feel the same way when I get tired of the race. I just had nothing. And I thought, what is going on? And so, as time went on, I found out I had mononucleosis. I was racing, and it would fall apart after about half the race. Finally, I said, Bob, you're going to get a blood test. So I did. And when I called the doctor back up who did the test, he didn't do the testing yet. He had somebody else do the testing. He was the one that conduit. He says, Bob, they told me it's the worst case they have ever seen on mononucleosis in Los Angeles County. That's a pretty big county, by the way. Anyway, I was in the hospital for 4 months. The hospital. But they wouldn't let me out until my blood straightened out. And went back to the normal little round hemoglobin. After that, I was way out of shape. 4 months. Couldn't do anything. They wouldn't let me exercise, nothing. So I had to start all over again. And ate blood. When I finally got out, I spent about 3 weeks just jogging around and trying to get some back. And then I started going back to Los Angeles again with Max Truex. And Nico had acted like I never had been sick. I said to myself, Coach, I've been in the hospital for 3 months, 4 months. I said, take it a little easy on it. I didn't tell him that, by the way. So anyway, I did get in better shape. And by the next winter season, when Jim Beatty set a world record for 2 miles of 8:30 indoors, I was second in that race, ran 8:38, 8 seconds behind Beatty, but it was the second best time ever in the world. And I thought, coming back. So anyway, as time went on, I got out of the Air Force just before Christmas in 62. 63, I went back to Big Loy and trained with him for a while. And I had recovered from another injury, a calf muscle, although I had run in Brazil for the Pan American Games. I led the whole race, but I couldn't sprint because of the calf. And I got to about 200 meters, and two guys passed me, my American teammate and an Argentina runner. And might have been without the calf, might have been okay. Or if I had been smart enough to take it properly, but I wasn't. So anyway, I go back to Miami. I don't have a scholarship, didn't have one when I walked out of Miami. They weren't going to offer me one now, I guess, because they had me over a barrel. I mean, I was back, right? What the heck? Why spend money on this guy? There was a time in the spring, I worked very hard during the fall, but I didn't race it. I had to get myself back into shape. And really worked out hard. I was coaching myself, using the Igloy system. I changed a few things, but Igloy was changing things too. Didn't stick with one thing. He's experiment from time to time, but changed things around. So I did too. But I was working hard. Came springtime, I decided one day to do some 400 meters. See how many? I picked the limit of 20. 400 meters. If I run 20 times 400 meters, well, I ran them on the cinder track. I took a 55-yard walk after I finished one, turned, jogged back 55 meters, and went again. That is not much interval. I ran 3 in 60 seconds, each 4 through 58. I went on through 19. On the 20th one, I ran all out. Ran 54 seconds. 54 seconds for number 20. Nobody else in the world had ever done it. Nobody else in the world had ever attempted that. There were some people like Coots, is that okay? But they were running like 70 seconds. And they would do like 30 of them. And the difference between 70 and 60 is unbelievable. So I knew I was getting in shape. I did about every other Sunday. And I was doing some very, very hard training. I ran some races for Miami and did very well. There was a race coming up in Compton, California. I was invited out to run 5,000 meters. Got to California. Now things are different. Oh, it's nice and warm. I mean, you know, it had been pretty cold over the winter. I was training indoors, did a lot of indoor running. It was high temperature in the daytime through January was 10 degrees above zero. And I was training underneath the football stands outside. There was no indoor place to run. It was fun. Right. So here was Compton. It was the biggest 5,000 meters ever put together in North America. We had everybody in America that was a good 5K runner, everything. We had the top Canadian, Bruce Kidd, who held the America's record of 13:44. Then we had Bill Bailey. Ah, yes, come home, Bill Bailey. New Zealand. He was a world record holder. He was also in the race. He had just won a race a week before in California. And so it was going to be a tremendous race. I didn't know how fit I was, really. Because the indoor races, I ran those either to win them or Bruce Kidd and I flipped 4 and 4. And if we won a race, each of us won by about that far. Whoever got the sprint on the first one, first time, that's who won. There were times that he jumped me and other times when I jumped in. But I ran 13 times indoors. 13 times. The trouble is, there was only 10 weeks, which meant that I ran Friday and then fly to another city and run another race on Saturday. Not the best way to try to get a good time. But I didn't like to train outdoors, so this was much better than race shape, so to speak. So anyway, the race is underway. We're going through, but they aren't calling any lap times. So we don't know really how fast we're running. Our bodies know somewhat, but I was really feeling pretty good. And so we get down to about 3 laps to go. And then the guys, I was running about 3rd, 4th, 5th, back and forth. I took the lead. Bill Bailey went with me, and we pulled away from everybody else. With a lap to go, Bill Bailey's still right behind me. Now, I gotta remember, this is a night meet. The lights are on. This is a high school, but it's still one of the biggest races in California at the time. They do a fantastic job. And so I'm coming around, bell rings for the last lap. I'm watching the shadow because the shadow is back of me and I can see his shadow. And if it moved out, I knew he was coming. We went around the turn, and as we did, of course, the lights now were different. Now we're jumping from the opposite direction. The shadow disappeared. And I said to myself, go. I poured it on, went a full sprint, came around into the straightaway, felt good all the way through, and ran 13 minutes and 38 seconds. The world record at the time was 13:35. I ran the last lap in 54 seconds. If I only known with a mile to go, the world record would have been mine. And I was a little upset that somebody wasn't calling lap times. But I had the fastest time in the world, which we thought it would hold up through the Olympic Games. Later on that summer, I was testing myself. After I got out of school, I went to California. That's because I wasn't bothered so much with my allergies in California. And so one day, George Young and I were training together. We were living in the same house. His wife, my wife, their child, along with us. And I said, after we finished the workout, he was doing my workouts, by the way. George Young, by the way, some of you may not know, he was a bronze medalist in Mexico City, beaten by 2 Africans who lived at altitude, born at altitude, had semesters there, and people that lived there and their families for millions of years. Their bodies have changed. We know that now. They're a different animal. Does any animal changes when they're in different climates? Nothing wrong with that. Just fortunate that they're there. But anyway, we were home one day and I said, George, I want to break the world record for 2 miles. And he sat there and stared at me. And he said, are you serious? I said, yeah. I said, the 400s I do, the other stuff I'm doing, I'm running over 100 miles a week, and it's most a lot of speed work. I don't do any long runs at all. 0. Everything is 400 meters and short. And a lot of it. And he says, you are serious. And I said, yeah, I'm ready. I said, we can go out to Pierce Junior College in the San Fernando Valley, and we can run this race. And he says, well, what are you asking? I said, well, I'm asking that you lead it for a while, so I don't have to go out there and run the whole thing in front by myself. I said, that might be a little difficult. And I said, he said, well, how fast do I have to run? And I said, well, I want to go through the first mile in 4:12. 4:12. And he sat there and looked at me and says, do you want me to go farther than a mile? I said, I'd like you to, if you can. He's like, I can't do that, keep going. I run 4:12, you won't see me after that. And I said, what do you think you can run and still keep going? He stared at me again for a little bit. Finally he said, well, I think I can run 4:14. The world record was by Michel Jazzy, Frenchman. It was going to be my top competition, I knew it. He held the world record at 8:29. So at 4:14, if I could just double that, I'd break the world record. Well, it was better for him to lead a little further than a mile than not have to do it. I said, okay, we can do that. So, a week later, we're out at Pierce Junior College, and we look at the schedule, and the 2 mile is the last event on the schedule. And I said, you know, George, I said, by the time we run, that track is going to be so chewed up. You remember now, we're running, you know, on cinders or on dirt. This was sort of a dirt track. And you get big holes on all these tracks. And so he says, yeah. I said, let's talk to the meet director who we know, Pete Peterson, who was a good friend. I found Pete and I said, Pete, we got a problem. He said, what's the problem? He says, you got the 2 mile last event. He says, we're going to break the world record tonight. Yeah, I told him that. And he looked at me and he didn't say anything for a little bit. He said, are you serious? I said, yeah. We're going to break the world record. And so he said, well, what's your problem? I said, well, you got it so late. You chewed up. He says, can you move it up? We looked at all of his reports of people, and he said, tell you what we can do. We can run second. We'll run the 100 meters first. We got 21 guys, 7 to a lane, 7 people, 7 lane. Don't run in the first lane. This was 8-lane track. He said, we're doing it on time anyway. We're not doing it come around and have them run the final. So I said, okay. So very shortly after that, it was time to warm up, a 15-minute warm-up. And George did his, I did mine. Finally, it was time, the 100s were over. They called us to the starting blocks, starting position, we didn't use blocks. And we started down out. This is an all-comers meet. Anybody can show up. But in California, it's not like any typical. You might have 3 or 4 world record holders coming out there to do something. Or American record holders. They're getting ready. They're keeping ready for the trials. We have another trials coming up in September. We already had one in New York in June, but the games were in October. We had to have another one to be sure that we were still training, I guess. So anyway, he's got us lined up, and he takes the mic, and he goes through. He's got his list of who they are. Then he starts naming off, and everybody puts their hand up when he announces their name. George is in lane 1. I'm in lane 2. He announces George, and George puts his hand up. Then he says, in lane 2 is Bob Schul, who's going to break the world record tonight. I looked over at George and I said, there's pressure. Well, we got started. Gun went off, and off we go. George takes the lead. I get in the second. Come around the first lap, around the turn, back swing the second lap. And Billy Mills comes around us and takes the lead. And I think to myself, what is he doing? We're on world record pace. I know he can't hold it. He hasn't won a race all year. I raced him 8 times. I never thought of him as competition. He was just another person to race. And I thought, what is this guy doing? Well, he goes 50 meters and starts slowing up. I had moved past George to follow him, And I yell at him, faster, Billy. He picks it up for about 10 meters and slows up again. I move out, around Billy, George moves out past me and takes the lead again. So we're past him, we come around, second lap's finished, around the turn to the back straight, and here comes another runner. Norm Higgins, who's one of Big Lloyd's boys, except he's a marathoner. He has no speed whatsoever. And he's passing it, and he's just screaming, what am I doing, And I'm thinking to myself, how long is this going to last? Well, it lasted about 30 meters. And we have to move out and go past him. Well, then we pull away from everybody. Nobody's going to stick to the things. We come around the mile before 14, right on. We've lost a second, probably half a second each time we had to fool around with those guys. But we got to 4:14 just where we're supposed to be. At that point, George is still in the lead. 2 more laps, he keeps going. After 6 laps, he goes out to the second lane as we're coming down to what would be the finish line with 2 laps to go. That means it's over for him. And I pass him on the inside, and I know at this point now I'm alone. I'm pressing now because I have to run another 4:14 to break the record. And so, as I go around the turn into the last lap, the bell rings, something dramatically happened. Every athlete, I don't care if they were a gold medalist, a world record holder, or whatever, had moved to the track itself, the inside portion of the track. And it was shoulder to shoulder, around the turn and down that back straight. And they were just screaming. To the point that it gave me impetus to dig even harder. I came around the turn into the straightaway, 100 meters to go, and I was driving as hard as I possibly could. I hit the finish line. I stopped and walked into the grass field. One of the officials ran over. He says, Bob, look at this. He had a watch in his hand. Well, at that point, I got this terrific headache. My eyes were blurry. I couldn't see what it was. What did I do? He says, you broke the record by 3 seconds. You ran 8:26.4. And I thought, now Johnsy's got something to worry about. I got the fastest time at 5K in the world. I got Johnsy's world record. First time since Beatty took it. At this point, I'm thinking to myself, we're okay. All right. How are we doing here? No, nobody taking a shower yet?
No shower.
No shower. Everybody okay? Yes? Well, we're going to take you now to the games. We had the final race in September. It was a very easy race. I ran 13:55. I wanted it to be the same as I was going to have to run in Tokyo in the trials. Because you had to run a trial on the 16th of October, the finals on the 18th of October. And I thought that 13:55 would probably get me through pretty easily. I knew all the people what their times were. They were all in the European journals, which I read, of course. So anyway, we get to Tokyo. We're ready to run, a week later, the trial race. It went pretty much what I expected, except it was even slower. I was really I felt I was jogging in this race. We finished at 14:10 in that race. Came to the point where the Olympic champion didn't make the final. The former Olympic champion 4 years before, Murray Halberg. He didn't make the final. Day's rest, and we're out again to the track. Now, try and keep this a little short. The morning, it was pouring down rain when I woke up. George Young was my roommate. We were up in the last room as far as we could away from everybody. And he woke up about the same time I did. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning, time for my morning run, workout, before the race that afternoon at 4 o'clock. And he said something that was really cute. He says, Bob, he says, you're going to get much wetter than I did in the steeplechase. I said, thanks, George. Reminded me about that. Well, all day it rained. I had a pre-meet meal about 11 o'clock, 5 hours before, which is normal for me. And so, And so, about an hour and 15 minutes, 20 minutes before the race, I got dressed, put my raincoat on, rain cap, and got to the front entrance of the Olympic Village, got on a bus, which was just meant for coaches and athletes. They toured all the different sites, all the different places that were going on, gymnastics, basketball, badminton, volleyball, whatever it might be. They went to all those venues. So I got on, there was a bus driver, of course Japanese, one other athlete who I did not recognize, and he was sitting in the seat already, and his country was on the back, so I didn't know who he was. Finally, we got to the Olympic Stadium. At that point, I got off the bus and hurried inside the back entrance. Only were athletes and coaches, and there were some pretty big Japanese standing around checking your credentials. Hurried inside, and I got about 15 yards inside, and two of my coaches ran up to me. Bob, where have you been? You know what that does to you? Can you imagine? You know, my adrenaline gland said, wow, pump some adrenaline here, what's going on? And I said, why? And I thought to myself, did I read the schedule wrong? Did I miss my race? And he said, well, you've only got an hour. I said, yeah, that's what I want. 1 hour, that's all I need. So right off of this area, there was a dirt area, and people were jogging around this dirt area. It was one of the areas they could warm up in without going up to the track, the warm-up track, in the rain. Nobody wanted to do that. It was still pouring. So I walked into this little room. Everybody had a room. Every nation had a room. So I walked into our room, and Willie Davenport, our herder, one of our top herders, one of the top people in the world. I think he was ranked number 4 in the world, might have been 3. He was standing in the middle of the room, dripping wet. Now I knew the hurdles were just before our race. So there were other races, a lot of hurdles. He was dripping wet, and as I walked by to put my stuff over by the wall, I sort of said, well, how'd it go? Well, he started to walk on, and he turned and says, and I stopped because he turned. He says, Bob, I didn't make it. This is the first round. He could have cakewalked this thing normally and got into the next round. But he's telling me he didn't make it. And I thought, oh, brother, got to get out of here. And he kept talking. He said, I got a great start. I was out in the lead over the first hurdle, second hurdle, third hurdle. He said, I slipped in the mud a little bit. I nicked it a little bit, but that even slowed me up. When I got to the fourth hurdle, he says, I hit it even harder. And he says, everybody went by. I'm thinking to myself, you can't listen to this. You can't listen to this. You've got to get out of here. What do you say? I reached out, I think. So I patted him on the shoulder and left my stuff by the wall, went out to warm up. I had 50 minutes, exactly what I wanted. At 20 minutes, we had to go into a little room. We had to be there 20 minutes before. Warm-up was over, couldn't warm up in the room. It was a concrete floor. They wanted you seated. I was in the second position, therefore I was in the second lane. I was the last person in. As we were sitting there, I got a little tired of sitting in one position. I had leaned forward and I had looked to my right side. Jazzy, who was down about 5 people, had leaned forward. He was looking to his left. And our eyes met. And as I turned my head back, I saw his head snap back too. We weren't going to be looking at each other again. And so, finally came time for us to walk through the tunnels, get to the starting point. Where's my man? We're going to show you, I'm going to show you the last 3 laps. About 3 minutes. About 3 minutes. We can get it going here. You need the mic? This mic? First of all, mic. No, what, we didn't sail that day. Not true. Uh-oh. It's on there. We know it's on there. Fine.
Technology is great when it works.
Well, we tried it when it first came in, so it's there. Come on, swim it. Oh, the searchman. Anybody have a quick question until they get it? Anybody? Nobody? Okay. Everybody said, no, I just want to go home. There we go. There we go. 3 laps to go. I'm married. I'll tell you every time. After 2 or 3 laps to go, and Clark relinquished the lead to Michel Jazzy. So Jazzy's in front, Clark is in second. The German Norpop was in third. Lutov, the Russian, is in fourth. Bill Bailey, fifth. Kip Kino in sixth, who won 2 gold medals later on. In 1968, beat Jim Ryan. Jim didn't tell you that, did he? But some of you weren't here. But he was a great runner, and I'm just off the screen there. You see me just there was my black back Kip Kino. In this particular race, there are 6 people who held world records. 6. Never happened before, never happened since. That there are so many world record holders in one race. There were 6 of them. Most of them are up front. Jazzy, Clark, Norpop, Bailey, Kip Kino, and myself. The Russian did not hold the world record. So most of the guys who had the speed of the record. You can see the water on the track. You see the umbrellas in the stands. The track was muddy. Once in a while, you did a spot and your foot would slip back a little bit. So it was not the best thing. Here I decided I'd move up. I moved out. Moved up into 4th. As the announcer said, Clark said, sure. That's what he said. And then the other American, Bill Dellinger of Oregon, takes over the lead. I asked Bill later on, I said, why'd you do that? And he says, well, that's the only way I thought I could even get close to a medal. He was not expecting the medal. This was his 3rd Olympics. This is the first time he made the final. He'd always been ousted in the trials. So here we go. Dellinger comes down, around, and Jazzy finally says, this is getting to the point where I've got to get out there and start moving. So he takes the lead. I'm back a little bit. I'm in 5th right now. Jazzy takes off, and I'm trying to get outside of the runner. Finally, it's time to move. Jazzy is moving pretty good. Norpod, I'm in third. They come up on Norpod. You see all the water on the track. Here we are now, about 100 meters to go. Jossy's looking around and straining. I go by him at this point. At this point, I'm pretty sure I'm going to win, and I don't take any chance. I run as hard as possible. So last line. All right. The only thing I want to say is that figure out who won third. Took 30 minutes. They looked at the photos. My guess is they had a big argument over who got third, Josy or Dellinger, because it was so close. My guess is it was this much between them. In fact, they might have even tied. But we said, Bill and I sat in a room just off the track for 30 minutes before they came in and said, Mr. Dellinger, you are the bronze medalist. And was he happy? He was really happy. He didn't expect to get a medal. Well, that's the end of it. I've taken a lot of your time. I hope you understand now what it's like going to the games as an American. And we've had other Americans recently who've done well. But we haven't had the gold medals. We've had 5 gold medals, 1 woman, 4 men, in the distance races from 1,500 meters to the marathon. That's all. And I'm the only one that can't win the games as a favorite because of my world record and my fastest time in the world at that time. Well, I thank you for taking the time. I can start going and I'll tell stories.
Give it up again for Bob Scholl. He did a phenomenal job. When we were having the microphone issues, he kind of breezed past here just really quietly. He goes, you got a tough road ahead. I said, I do, don't I? But we got that fixed. So thank you all again so much for being here with us tonight. That concludes our program. Hope you all enjoyed yourself, and I hope you will join us for WLWT News 5 today, starting tomorrow morning at 4:30. That means it's past my bedtime. Have a good night. Be safe.